out your application. I want to wish everybody early on a happy holiday. And we'll meet again in the new year, 2015. This month there will be no housing committee meeting. There will be no health and human service meeting. And usually in December, we will honor the tradition of no steering committee. So there will be time for fun and footballing. We're going to ask people tonight, it's going to be we have a large audience here, a lot of public members. So we're going to ask everybody to be very brief, to be very courteous, and to listen. And so I'm going to go there for this. I
don't know, there's an agenda yet, so maybe not.
Good break. Holiday bonus, it's already bonus.
Our first speaker is Coleman O'Reilly, talking about trash cans in Upper West Side.
Hello, my name is Coleman O'Reilly. I love recycling just as much as everyone in this room, but the recycling trash cans in Upper West Side are not being used properly, also not being collected. All I ask is you look around and you notice it. Hopefully we can resolve this by putting more funding towards sanitation pickups. Sanitation is doing a great job, but once again, these recycling cans are not working. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Darian Castillo, who is speaking about police community relations.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Darian Castillo. I'm from the Civilian Complaint Review Board, CCRB for short. We are the city agency that investigates and mediates allegations of police misconduct. We investigate excessive or unnecessary use of force, abuse of authority, discourtesy, or offensive language. If you feel like you would like to make a complaint, you can call 311. You can be forwarded to our office. Visit our office at 100 Church Street, or you can call our number 1-800-341-2272. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sheila Kendrick and Holly Hoffman from the State Central Park, New York City.
Holly's a member of the search team. We're looking behind.
We were very pleased with Helen Rosenthal's statement, PR statement this week about 50 West 66th Street, another super tall that's going to shadow Central Park and also really change the Lincoln Square Special District neighborhood. And we were wondering if there's going to be a community-wide meeting about that, and if there's a way for the community board to support Helen Rosenthal, and what would that be?
At this moment, there is no meeting, but we will be in touch with her office and see where it goes.
Will there be a community-wide chance for input or participation?
I think that will be through a different venue, but we'll get back to you and post something on our website. It is built as an as-of-right development, so it does not come before the community board. So we have no say whether it can go forward. Unfortunately, whereas on 108th Street, it's a uniform land use review process, so we do have a say. Unfortunately, the developer was able to figure out how to get the property and build the way it's built.
Even though it seems to go against the resolution for the Lincoln Square Special District, there's no review process for that?
Why don't we discuss this offline? Great, thank you. Our next speaker. Yes.
There's the one.
X number of floors, and that there was kind of a bait switch added a significant additional number of floors. Would that be something that the community board would have to have in mind?
No, if they never came before the community board and they don't have to come before the community board. As of right, so they could build 21 stories, they could build 50 stories, they could build the 75 stories. The other groups will be working on it. It's not something CB7 can work on.
They're not seeking a special permit, they're not seeking a variance, they're not seeking a rezoning, they're not seeking any of the actions that trigger our review. We can still say things about it if we want to, but it would be just for the, it would just be a voice in the dialogue. It would not be an approval or disapproval of that sort. Go ahead and talk to you offline.
Our next speaker is Dr. Franklin.
I just want to say that we're concerned about the park. This is my 16th time coming before the community board over the last 2 years requesting that there be a community-wide review of the application by the museum to expand into Teddy Roosevelt Park, which is a public park. And unfortunately, yesterday, Parks Commissioner Silver signed off on the application by the museum. Shouldn't be too much of a surprise, because essentially he approved the project that he approved when he's as a member of the museum's board. So no surprise there. But we'd like to say that the Parks Committee has scheduled a meeting for December 18th. And I'd like to find out if finally, that now that the approval has been given by the Parks Commissioner, will the Parks Committee have a meeting on it, and then will that translate into a full community-wide discussion of this matter?
Hi, we have two parts of the meeting. We do have our regular meeting this month on the 18th, but no, we will not be considering anything about the museum's project. That process is over. We had a role in it on 2 occasions, and we did our role on those 2 occasions. And as you say, I hadn't known the commissioner signed off on it today or yesterday, but anyway, that process is done. However, I will say to those who are interested in Theodore Roosevelt Park that we do have on our agenda on this December 18th a presentation by a completely different group in the Parks Department, preliminary findings of the study they've been conducting with regard to the use of lawns and possibly changing the amount of lawns open to the public in that park.
So there's nothing coming before the full board from the Parks Committee about approving the full proposal by the museum?
That is correct.
Because when we had the environmental review, we were told at that time, we were only coming to landmark review. We were told at that time it's only going to be considering landmark. There's never been a community board meeting that I'm aware of.
We were not asked to do that. That's not within our, that's not within the scope of work. Thank you so much. What I'd like to do, thanks to all of our elected reps, they have agreed not to speak tonight because we want to hear from the public, but I would like to introduce them so they could all come forward. We have Brandon Ward from State Senator Marissa Alcantara. We have Militech from Doctor's office. We have Ellie Pellets from Congressman Jerry Mather's office. And back there from State Senator's office. And did I miss somebody? Marissa from Councilmember Hillen's office. Did I miss anybody else? Eric from Councilmember Mark's office. So they're in the back. If anyone has a question or a comment, they're going to stay for a while. So feel free to talk with them. And now we're going to go into our business section. And we're going to start with land use. We are going to ask each member of the public who's speaking to speak for 1 minute. And I'm going to go get the forms.
Richard has the floor.
I'd like to introduce Richard Ash, who is co-chair of the Land Use Committee. There were 4 committees that were involved in the review process. Land Use was the lead committee, and I want to especially thank Richard and Paige and Madge from Health and Human Services, and Jeanette, who cannot be here tonight, from Housing, and also Andrew and Howard from Transportation. They have attended all of, and I want to thank all the committee members of the 4 super committees and all of the other committee board 7 members who have sat through the meetings, who have looked on the internet and read comments by the public. We have really tried to pay very good attention and be very respectful of all different sides.
I haven't been able to count the number of people who signed up to speak, but it's quite a large number. I'll say what we say before every session where there are a large number of people who wish to speak. The board is generally not persuaded by the number of people, but by the contents of what people say. If there are people who want to say me too, when Roberta said that everybody's going to speak for a minute, that's a maximum, not a minimum.
Oh.
And you can do a me too. That's become a very popular phrase recently. Or you can cede time to somebody else, who may be a spokesperson for your point of view. All right, Cynthia Stewart, followed by Margaret Liu. Yeah, just Margaret Liu, and then after Margaret, Nathan Gebhardt.
I'm good. Okay. Hi, I'm Cynthia Stewart. I'm a proud member of CB7 and I'm Chief Operating Officer of the Supportive Housing Network of New York. And we're a membership organization that represents 200 not-for-profits that build and maintain supportive housing across New York State. We have 50,000 units around New York State. So I'll make it short and sweet. I'm going to speak to the need for supportive housing and I'm going to speak to the reputation of bushfish. The need for senior supportive housing is incredible. As you all know, there's 60,000 people in our shelter system today, and fully 1/3 of them are over 55. The chronically homeless individuals. And although we represent 200 not-for-profit groups who are all our children, we love Bushfish among our favorite children. Bushfish is one of the founders of the supportive housing model. Bushfish is one of the best supportive housing groups with a 40-year reputation for excellence, a 40-year reputation for being the moral high standard. Thank you very much.
I live a few blocks from the garages. I own a car which I need for work. There are people whose lives will be inconvenienced by the loss of these garages. Some of them are my friends, and whether they live in $2 million apartments and unstabilized ones, their stresses are real. But I want to make this point. First, let's not make it too much. Make it one point. Individually owned and individually parked cars are not the future in our or many other cities. Driverless cars and re-envisioned mass transportation are on the horizon. We are seeing the prototypes now. Young people know this. Fewer of them are owning or even driving cars. Street and nearby garage parking will become anachronistic. There will be more pedestrian, bike, and green space. This is not a bad thing. Cars and roads and highways have been king in this country for a long time.
systems are shambles locally and nationally. This is not good. I think that I support this housing project. This is the future, and it's affordable, diversity.
Judy Winters and Neuro Zagara. My name is Nathan Deborah. For 20, just a citizen, I speak for myself. For 23 years, I've lived on the top floor of 138 West 109th Street, directly behind Valley Lodge, which is part of the project, and the entire proposed development. I will lose some light and air and experience inconvenience should the project go ahead. I also park my car on the street, and the demolition of the garages might make it more difficult. I speak nonetheless to express my unambiguous support. We must do everything we can to create more affordable housing in the state. If I have to give up something to see that that is done, I am happy to do so. As New Yorkers, this is what we do for each other. And I'm excited to welcome new people to this neighborhood that I love. By sharing, we only make it better. Thank you.
Please, at the end, I'll ask for people to applaud for names. So you don't have to applaud each speaker. You can go over and shake his hand.
Hi, I'm a single mother and an older person with various needs. I need my car for my daughter, and I know it's not in New York City. If I don't have a car, I don't know if I can continue living where I'm living. And without the laws, I don't think I can have a car. I often come home at irregular hours and there are no parking spaces at various times. Given that I'm in a stabilized apartment, I don't know where I would live anyway. So this would affect my life a great deal. I think it's because that housing is a complete fundamental alternative for my largest son. I'm not going to become a young person who doesn't need a car until they get married, have children, and they have a car in the suburbs. So I just want someplace to park the car. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Meryl Zagara. I'm in the group statement Happy Valley. I have a question for you. If the city decided it wants some land for affordable housing projects, and they decided to take over part of Riverside Park, would the board say, that's okay, affordable housing, everybody wants affordable housing, but is that the proper location to put it without harming some of the people who are here, who want to play in the playground, who have kids who need to go to the park? These parking garages have been there for 30 years. People in this community need them. I don't know how many people on this board live in Manhattan Valley, know people who live in Manhattan Valley. Could raise your hands. How many live in Manhattan Valley? One. No, on the board. How many people on the board know Manhattan Valley and know that it's a working class neighborhood? People depend on their cars to get to their jobs for many different reasons. We shouldn't even have to qualify why someone needs a car. But we don't live in the Jetsons yet. And I don't think that's going to be coming around for some time. So I think this project is a band-aid on the affordable housing which is needed, but it's just a quick fix. Has anybody here thought about the long-term effect on this community and what will happen to the citizens who live here?
Followed by Lorna Lyons.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to support this and their initiative at 108th Street. I'm a resident in Valley Lodge. I came here from Pittsburgh. I've been to all of your proceedings thus far. I'd like to thank the committee for voting in our favor. I don't know what people would do without this fix in this region. I came a long way, need a place to stay, to start over again. And in my opinion, that took a lot of courage for a woman my age, expecting my entire family to follow me here. Wish this was there for me. Wish this has been there for countless of people. Everybody who Valley Lodge and wish this. Stand up. Stand up, raise your hand. Come on. These people have been in the game. for so long until it's a no-brainer. I'm gonna make this really short. I love the work that they do. I don't agree with everything that they do and say, but I support this issue. My name is Lorna Lyons, and I support this message.
Evangeline Caliendo, followed by Brian Winnick. Oh, there's Lorna Lyons, okay. Then Evangeline, and then Brian.
I'm sorry, hang on 1 second for the minutes here.
Thank you.
And for your name, then? You're Evangeline, okay. And, I'm sorry, ma'am, are you Ms. Lyons?
Yeah.
So what happened to Ms. Ellis? No, that's Ms. Lyons. Okay.
Anyhow,
Okay.
you're up.
Why don't I go next? I'm Bridget Moon, and you called me.
That's fine.
Okay, I am completely supportive of, affordable housing proposals. I'm also aware that the affordable housing, that we have above 96th Street is extensive, and that, that most affordable housing, most supportive housing is located above 96th Street. I do think that one of the political things that happen is that people locate affordable housing in communities which are often emerging, and Manhattan Valley is emerging as a diverse, strong, ethnically diverse, and socially responsible neighborhood. That doesn't mean we should eliminate our parking garages, and it doesn't mean that we're against affordable housing at all. And I think that's really, really important to stress here. We are against segregating the poor and putting them all in one location.
Linda Poulon, followed by. Do I call anyone who is not voting in?
Good evening, I'm Linda Poulon. At the last meeting of the committees, it was decided that all 3 garages would be part of the current project. In doing some research, I came across this article, and I have 25 copies to give out. It's from the Environmental Research Volume 103, Issue 3, March 2007. And the summary says, the study suggests that multiple demolitions within a consensus block may significantly increase children's lead levels. The finding may be useful to municipal planners in older cities where demolitions are being used. It costs $41.95 to download the entire report, and I think it's 7 pages.
1 second. What's the source of that report? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
Could I ask a question? Did they, could you define the age range?
The age range was for younger children, that is true.
For 6 months to 72 months.
That is true. The age range for this report is for younger children.
Right.
And I have 25 copies that we can share.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I look at the original proposal to this project included.
The original proposal, I consider, was to take their 2 garages and the 3rd garage within 5 years. But in the last meeting, it's my understanding that the current resolution includes all 3 garages.
That's right, that's correct. Right, to eliminate. I want to look at this. Are you on?
Yes,
Okay, then.
I am Ellen Amstutz, and I'm representing DeRote, which is a social service agency for the senior citizens on the Upper West Side. One of the things that we do is we run a transitional housing program for homeless New Yorkers. And our landlord is Wizfish, and I want to just emphasize what a excellent community partner this is, and we are pleased to have that partnership. I do want to say that in our program, we assist ordinary New Yorkers who are senior citizens who have fallen on hard times. Many of them have had full work careers, are college educated, come from all walks of life and culture. They've fallen upon hard times because of their rent increasing faster than their income, or the loss of a partner and their name was not on the lease, and we had no place to put them after our program. So this development is extremely important for seniors in this neighborhood. Thank you.
Judy told us that she would see the minutes to be effective for them. She's on the list. Judy told me. Okay. She is against the project, by the way. I'll be happy to start. I think I might have something to say about transportation. As it turns out, if you take a look around New York, certainly most people move around by the subways, the best mass transit that's around here. Crucial to the infrastructure of trains, tracks, but also subway stations. Everyone needs the subway station near to where they live, where the destination would be. If you can't have a way to go by mass transit or other forms, and have places to go, where only an automobile will take you, an automobile for whatever reasons, someone in this neighborhood in the Manhattan Valley has a reason to go, they absolutely need a way to operate that automobile. And if you have a car, you need to park it. It doesn't fit in your apartment, the fire department won't allow it. So you need to either be on the street or in a garage. The parking place is crucial. Parking is crucial infrastructure for those people who need an automobile to be able to go where they need to go. These garages are irreplaceable. When you destroy them, like capital punishment, they will go away and can't be brought back if you made a mistake. And in fact, if they are lost, they will have an impact on anyone who owns or uses a car in this neighborhood, needs an automobile. The same as if they remove the subway station from near your house if you were taking the subway. Or for those of you who own a car, if they remove the garage or the place that you park your car, how many people will give up a car in order to make parking better if you want to do here? I would say this project should not go ahead until the solution can be found for replacing the parking that would be lost. Or if you feel you absolutely have to vote for it, please ask our elected officials to keep an open mind to find a way to a project that will include both interior parking and building housing. All right? And let's get to that point, and then let's have the rate, but without push HPB there. Right? Thank you.
Independent, qualified, and no snow.
Good evening, I'm David Dubin. I've lived in the neighborhood since 1967. I would just like to point out that these garages are often thought of as being parking versus people. It's really a people versus people issue. Many of the people who park in these garages, and there are over 800 of them, depend on these things for their livelihood. If you destroy these garages, you will be evicting those people. I think if this were a housing project, we would not willy-nilly evict those people without some accommodation. So I urge you to think about that. Many members of the board have misinformation about the availability of parking. At the earlier meeting, it was one of the members that said that it's proved that there are other monthly parking spots available. Well, it's not the case. The only studies that have been done are wholly inadequate and show that there are just no alternatives. So I think you should consider that destroying these garages will, in fact, evict many of the members of this community. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joe Marciello. I've been parking in one of these garages for about 30 years, and I just want to say that I agree with the previous speaker. I just also want to remind everybody that these garages are used for community vehicles. There are ambulances there, there are the guard houses, vehicles. Where are they gonna park? On the street? I don't think so. The other thing I want to suggest is that the change in zoning is not going to be without consequence to the neighborhood. Already, all around the area, developers are assembling full blocks. These blocks are going to be assembled into non-affordable housing. So you're going to take away business people who work in the neighborhood because they park their car there. You're going to take away residential parking, so they have to be forced onto the street or other various alternatives. And I would suggest that before driverless vehicles come in, the developers will take up more of the space in the neighborhood for non-affordable housing. Thank you.
Mickey Navarro, followed by Howard.
Good evening. My sister is here with me. She's giving I'm the long-winded time. I'm the long-winded sister, but she's giving my time. She's giving me her time. I'm Mickey Navarro. I am employed. Candidate of Cognac. I'm the voice. Today. I am employed for Westside Federation of Supportive Housing. I'm director of 2 senior centers in the community. We came into this Manhattan Valley area in the late 40s, and we're still there. I'm the director of 2 senior centers, as I said. One, I have 1,500 members. In this institution, I graduated from this institution, and here, the School of Social Justice gave me the voice that a lot of these people don't have to speak to you, maybe because of their language, maybe because they don't know how to express themselves. So I'm here to say to you, the project on 108th Street is beneficial and important to this community. In the 40s, we've seen the loss of affordable housing in this community. We're sad about that. Wishfish only wants to put a drop in the bucket for what we're missing here, for what we need. I invite you all to the Center of the Road so you can hear the voices that torment me. We have 40 to 45 people come to us a week asking for affordable housing. We have 2,000 people waiting on our wishfish waiting list. What do I do with them? Tell me what I do with them. Who's going to tell me what to do with them? Because all I do is hear the voices torment me. Come and hear the stories. Hear the story about a veteran who doesn't have a place to live. Hear the story of the person who can't afford to pay the rent and maybe goes without eating so that she could pay the rent. Come and hear those stories that torment me. Come to 106th Street and hear the cry of the people who come in weekly. Come, join me. 135 West 106th Street. Come and hear the cry. I speak for them. I'm not understanding what we're talking about here. Many of them don't speak English. We should have had translation here tonight. I'm their voice. I am here to support affordable housing for these people. Thank you. Thank you. And I can tell you, these people here, they live in a SRO and they share their bathroom. They're senior citizens. They need to have their own bathroom, their own kitchen. Why not? They're seniors. They're old. Please, I support this, and I know that you guys are listening to us. Thank you.
Of course, we need affordable housing. Nobody's going to argue against affordable housing. The Manhattan Valley is hosting the highest percentage of affordable housing in Manhattan. Also, I have 2 elementary-age children, and the threat of lead leaching into the environment is terrifying for me. I'm also a street parker who cannot afford to pay for parking. And since moving into the neighborhood, we lost parking to the city lights, parking lanes, and to the 12 postal trucks from the 104th Street Post Office. Street parking is already very sparse. 700 more cars will make it impossible. Before affordable housing is approved, please ensure that we won't be poisoned, and please find us alternative parking solutions. Thank you.
Julia Kobe, followed by Elizabeth Keller. And then, Brian Nolan.
I've already seated my cat.
All right, thank you.
Therefore,
You're Julia?
If I'm Julia, I am talking to you.
Thank you.
Based on the law.
Thank you. Elizabeth Kellner, followed by Giovanni Nolan.
Elizabeth Kellner, I lived in Manhattan Valley for 41 years, and garages have been around probably for about 50 years. 700 cars all at once. I find that quite ironic, given this neighborhood administration's commitment to pedestrian safety, Vision Zero, and environmental sustainability. Because 700 cars riding around the streets of Manhattan Valley is not a way to ensure safety. I applaud Wisfish. I have no quarrel with Wisfish. They are mission-driven, not-for-profit. They are doing what they are supposed to do. My gripe is with this mayoral administration and the other elected officials who got Wisfish to front for them with this community and didn't have the guts to face this ourselves. I know it's an election year. It's all about the numbers. How many miles of bike lanes did we build? How many city bike stations did we build? They're grossly underutilized in the Manhattan Valley, and those of us who live there don't use them unless you're talking about a few Columbia students. So I really resent the city sticking it to Wisfish to carry the whole burden on this. They don't deserve it. They do great work, and shame on the de Blasio for administration for not having the guts to face this community.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Siobhan Bowen. I didn't prepare anything, but I just wanted to say that I do applaud Wisfish for the work that they've done. I've worked in supportive housing myself for a number of years, but I think that we're getting the points mixed up. In my experience with supportive housing, I am unaware that they build on services for the community, but instead, my experience has been that supportive housing builds on vacant lots or in dilapidated buildings. So I think that we're getting things a little confused. My big concern really is about the toxins that are in the garages. There are underground storage tanks under those garages that contain gasoline. Now that is gasoline prior to an EPA ban leaded gasoline. So that's leaded gasoline. And like the parents who spoke, I am concerned that with the children, we know that lead lends itself to damage to the nervous system, slow growth and development, learning and behavior problems like ADHD, reduced IQ, hearing and speech problems. And not only that, with adults as well, they are also affected. Reproductive effects with pregnant women and miscarriages, and also for men, reduced sperm counts, as well as premature births and effects on growth and neurological development for babies after birth. So that is a big concern that we need to take into consideration.
Thank you. Ned Wilson, followed by Peter Scott. Ned Wilson, Peter Scott. Is either one of these gentlemen here? Thank you. I've been living in.
What is your name?
Your name.
Ned Wilson. Did you call me Wilson? Yes. I thought everything. I've been living in the area of Manhattan Valley for 40 years. I've been parking in the garage for 8 years. And I was struck by a comment earlier that it is an essential service for some of us. I hate to see it. And I quite like taking away the garage, which is essential for my livelihood is like evicted from the city. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rita Scott, and I am a tenant at Cole House, which is one of the buildings that Westside Federation owns. Unlike many of you here tonight, I college educated. I quit my job I worked from 94 to 2004, but I quit my job had to take care of my mom who had dementia. After that, I found myself homeless. I was married for 27 years, and after the divorce sent me into the situation that I'm in. However, very savvy on the computer, so I went online and I looked up Westside Federation. So that they were doing a great deal of work for people like myself, because not all of the people in that situation have addictions, just so you know. Okay, they're registered voters, they live on part-time, unfortunately, and have to support themselves. I'm 66 years of age, and like I said, I'm in Cole House, which is an SRO. I have to share a kitchen and a bathroom, but all of that does not define me. I'm still worthy of everything good that each and every one of us has the right and the liberty to have today. Okay? I support totally what Westside Federation has done, not only for me, but the stories that I've heard about back in, I'd say, since 2011.
Wrap it up, please.
Okay? So yes, I do support Westside Federation and affordable housing, totally. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Smith. I'm a resident at 107th Street, and I've been in the neighborhood since 1993. I'm a professional musician. I need my car to bring in equipment. I'm a guitar player. Equipment to gigs all over the place. And affordable garages in the neighborhood are very few. There's the three that we're talking about here, and there's one other within a 10-block radius. The other garages in the neighborhood are at least $100 to $150 more per month. I've done the research. I don't think you all have. And that, for the little guy like me, that puts us at a real, with a real problem. I respect the need for affordable housing, and I respect that mission. But when you have a plan in place that has no plan for replacing affordable garages, city-run garages, by the way, the employees that work at these garages have been at their job for 90% of them for over 10 years, and you're going to put them out on the street. No plan to provide some other means for people to park their cars in the neighborhood. Thanks very much.
Good evening, my name is Arlen. I'm 23 years old, and it's no surprise to any of us here that the city is completely against drivers in their cars. It doesn't take much to figure it out. They built bike lanes, we took the hit. They added city bikes, we accepted it. But this is completely and utterly unacceptable. I'm fresh out of college, my job requires my car, and it already takes me an hour as is to get to and from my place. And it takes me a very long time to find parking, and I've seen the way drivers drive around here. It is unsafe and dangerous, and we do not need 700 plus more vehicles on the street. People require their cars for work and to live, and this is just, we can't take it anymore. This cannot be passed. I'm affordable. I am so completely okay with affordable housing, but we need to find a relocation for this, because 800 cars, not only bad for the environment, more gas you're going to waste, how much time people are wasting, and there's the complete danger it is to this neighborhood, which already is flooded with dangerous drivers. Please rethink this decision. Thank you for your time.
I'm Stanley Reesman. My wife and I have lived in the neighborhood since 1966. We started garaging our car after my wife was assaulted over a parking space. And this is not in Manhattan Valley, neighbors don't play neighbors against neighbors. We need affordable housing, and we don't take resources away from our neighbors to learn again. Thank you.
I'm a resident of the community. I believe that closing the garages will be not only inconvenience to the families and residents of the West Side community, but in some cases deadly. My son, who's a double lung transplant, and presently has liver cancer, living on 111 people will be affected by this closing. His caretakers, his nurses, his medical suppliers, his family care visitors, I visit him, coming from Queens, have difficulty parking. There's already a hassle with the alternative side, inside parking, difficult, sometimes an hour and a half. Caretakers and nurses that come to give therapy already have difficult time finding parking. Sometimes I had to wait an hour and a half circling parking at one time, going into the car to the front seat to administer an ID. I think this project is inhumane. I'll give testimony to the city agencies or write an affidavit how it will affect my family and my son. He's 39-year-old survivor of double transplant.
Mayor Yeoman, followed by Dan Cotton.
I think everyone can hold their clap into the very end. You know, a lot of speakers and then the board needs to go.
Or we can take a break now and everyone can clap.
Hey, just the first thing is, sort of off topic, I just want to advocate against the use of Me Too to mean anything besides sexual assault and rape. I'm a neighborhood resident, a homeowner with 3 additional tenant families, and I talk regularly with the people on my block. Overwhelmingly, my neighbors and I support this new housing. Our neighborhood is protected from massive gentrification happening elsewhere in the Upper West Side by the strong presence of affordable housing. It keeps the character and relative affordability of the area. Still, many of the moderate and lower income people who have lived in our neighborhood for decades, for longer than me, will not be able to stay as prices rise. The need for affordable housing is increasing and we need more of it. I also drive a car and I will have to figure out how to deal with tight parking. And I have been particularly, I love my neighbors, and I've been disappointed in those of them who are talking about losing their parking. Because what they're really talking about is paying more for parking. Many of the loudest voices are not people who drive to work or who use cars for luxury purposes and already live in luxury housing. So I just want to advocate for the community members who support the housing to be heard.
And after this gentleman, the last name is Roland, I think it's first name followed by Eileen Weiss.
Good evening, thank you, Richard. I'm standing here as president of Friends of Annabella Villa's Playground with the support of the West 108th Street development proposed by Rich Fish. I was a member of Community Board 7 when the garages were previously up for consideration some 15, 20 years ago. At the time, I voted in favor of keeping them as garages rather than allowing them to be sold off to private developers. That was the right decision then, but the circumstances have changed now. Now we have a community besieged by market rate development, a record loss of affordable units each year, and a proposal from a trustworthy and reliable nonprofit to build a 100% affordable project. The time has come for the garages to go. The playground is going to be the beneficiary of the project with a new bathroom, which will enable the Parks Department to staff our playground, provide storage space for parks maintenance, and provide daily oversight programming activities for our children during the warmer months. But even without the restrooms, FOAAP would support this project. The park is on a recent upswing. A safety fence, repainting and replanting, increased use of the park, and breathed life into the playground. But it was not long ago that drug paraphernalia was routinely found in the playground, surrounded on 2 sides by parking garages, and a 3rd side by the shrouded rear yards of West 109th Street tenements, regularly attracted drug dealers and users who would operate at night in the midst of darkness and undisturbed. I parked my car at 110th Street, the Avalon building, where I live with my family. No doubt parking rates will increase. Nonetheless, with increased safety and security, new affordable units, and a new bathroom for the playground, the choice is clear. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eileen Weiss. I've lived in Manhattan Valley for over 30 years, and I read the impact report for the 108th Street garage demolition, and it's horrendous. I don't know if you've read it. It's on the Manhattan Valley website. Please do not allow this to go through. It will destroy the local environment, hurt the kids in the nearby school. allow builders to violate height limits, put over 700 more cars out on the street, cast shadows where the sun used to shine, including the playground. Why are you supporting them? It will decimate local businesses who rely on their cars, and we already have the highest percent, over 40% of affordable housing is on the Upper West Side and Manhattan Valley. Please say no. In addition, this will add more people to the already overcrowded subways on Broadway and Central Park West. Not only those who will now have no place to park, but also the new residents in the oversized tower that would go up on the garage site. Do the right thing and please build affordable housing, but build it where it won't ruin an entire neighborhood. And also build it only when an alternative to the parking is made available to those in need. Thank you.
Lois Buckley, followed by Lawrence Karst.
I'm Laura Sutley. As a senior who has a car that I need to use for work, I'm in favor of both senior supportive housing and adequate neighborhood parking for people like me. We should not have to sacrifice one to get the other. I park my car in one of the 108th Street garages. I have an old car and a limited budget for parking it. I have tried to park on the street and it's really impossible late nights. I was forced out of a much cheaper parking garage up in Harlem when Columbia University expanded and took over the space. I've tried and tried to find parking space. Imagine how much worse it's going to be for all of us when hundreds of people like me are thrown out of the garages onto the street. Please do not create a stressful, chaotic situation in our neighborhood. If this project is to be approved, please require a solution for parking.
Richard Rosenblum, followed by Albert Bergeret. Is Lawrence Karst here, by the way? Albert Bergeret. There you go. Mr. Rosenblum and me.
I have been a resident in current apartment since 1959. I am a senior citizen for 25 years. I have an automobile which I have to park in the garage because I use it not every day, but I use it to move to upstate businesses that I have. My feeling is that even though we don't really need the affordable housing, some measure of interest should be taken in the needs of the existing community. And many of the people in the existing community have cars, need them for work, and must park them somewhere. And if you dump 1,000 cars, and it will be 1,000. Because the 700 that they claim are monthly parkers who park at night. There are between 300 and 400 additional vehicles that park during the day. These are people who come into the neighborhood, who park their cars in the garage so they can go to work in the shops and schools and hospitals in the community. And we all need off-street parking to take care of our businesses. Thank you.
My name is Albert Bergeret. Community board, by definition, exists to represent the needs and rights of the existing community. It is alarming to hear that the volume of protests were opposed, rather than the rational evaluation of impacts that affect the community, decision-making by community board 7 members. The fact that a previous successful objection to the elimination of the drive on 108th Street had a louder volume should give you pause, not encouragement. Additionally, the impassioned voices of those from outside the existing community and from the current political establishment have been allowed to overrule the reasonable demands of current residents for fair and balanced urban planning. I urge this body to use its influence to help garage owners to find alternative locations. The owner of my garage has identified an underutilized structure in the neighborhood that might be able to accommodate up to 500 vehicles. This board should do everything in its power to assist owners in creating new parking options before demolishing the current structures. When the block on the west side of Broadway between 95th and 94th Street was slated for development in the 1990s, a way was found to keep the existing theaters and build above them. Ironically, this prevented the inclusion of garages and more profitable use of space in the new structures.
But, just need the, assistant manager, any address you say could be used as a.
I don't know the specific address, I've just told her. It's 108th Street and Manhattan Valley, Manhattan, the Verizon building.
I'm going to go down for a second. I have two people down at Delbert Treasury, and I'm guessing only one of you actually is.
I know, there's more.
Okay, so who was the other gentleman? The other gentleman, Richard Rosenblum?
That's correct.
Okay, you said the name backwards. Thank you.
Jeanette Toomer, followed by Tom Allen.
Good evening. I've been living in Manhattan Valley for 30+ years. I was one of the original Amsterdam homesteaders, and we are the beneficiaries of affordable housing because of our sweat equity project. And we've been able to live in a low income co-op on Amsterdam Avenue around the corner from your proposal. My feeling right now is that, one, I've been driving for 5 years. My knees are not what they used to be. I can no longer take the subway, which I've done for most of my life. And so parking will terribly damage my ability to work and my income to support my family. So that's something you should consider. The other thing is that I'm an educator, and there are 4 schools in the area, and you are not addressing the damage from the demolition. It's going to be in the air and negatively affect the children who live in our community right now. And you have not responsibly addressed that issue. Thirdly, after all the protests, you refuse to scale down the project, which makes me feel that this was a foregone conclusion. You will not treat another area in Manhattan the way you treat Manhattan Valley.
My name is Tom Powell. I've been a resident on 108th Street since 1980. I parked my commercial vehicle in the garage to run my business. I employ about 10 to 12 people, and now I'm probably going to have to leave the city because I can't find an affordable garage to house my commercial vehicle within a 30-block radius. It's big enough that I can't just squeeze it into a small space, and whatever minor availability there is in existing garages. It is a problem that needs to be addressed because you're displacing viable businesses, tax-paying citizens who run businesses in this city to provide housing for, I'm sure, a very worthy cause. But we really need to address both sides of this issue. Why are we displacing those people?
Paul Scalise, followed by Paul Walsh, followed by William Stetson.
Hello, my name is Carl Joseph Scalise. I live on West 109th Street for over 70 years. We have very little affordable housing now in the community because of a company called Corso. They have over 100 buildings in the area, and it's not affordable for most people. About the demolition will be controlled by regulations the City Department of Buildings has, and it'll be minimal. We should be worried more about car pollution of the exhaust than anything else. And I've been talking about this for the last 30, 40 years. Fish itself basically has a reputation, and it's a good one. Basically, I'd like to say this way. Excuse me, I'm sorry. We need to go forward, not backwards. And I think the status quo has to go. Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Paul Walsh. I'm a alumni of Valley Lodge. I reside in the Wish Fish building, and everybody has the basic right to affordable housing. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lila's daughter. I'm a resident, and I agree with all the people who spoke before in support of this. One of the reasons why I moved to this neighborhood is because of the diversity, including the difference in the ages. I like having neighbors who are elderly, and honestly, that's one of the things that concerns me the most day to day is just what happens to them if their rent increases. You know, being put out on the street as an elderly person with no options is a lot different than someone who has subsidized parking, having their car have to find different options. So I really hope you vote for this.
Sullivan Feldstein, followed by John Weiler.
My name is Sullivan Feldstein. I didn't expect to speak before you. I appreciate the opportunity you gave me. I just want to share with you some of my thoughts about this. I've had a car in the garage, one of the garages since the 70s. And someone mentioned bike riding. When I first became a teacher, a college teacher in New Jersey, I used to ride my bicycle over the George Washington Bridge, 10 miles to work. Now, of course, as I got older, it didn't work out all the time. In the wintertime, I bought a used car and put it in one of the garages. I've always supported the social programs in the neighborhood, the housing. But here I think we have a conflict between eliminating the necessary public facility affordable car garages versus a desirable social program. And this will be a large project that displaces hundreds and hundreds of cars, many that go there during the day. It seems to me that the planning board has a dual mission and obligation to come up with a good and balanced approach to this problem. And I urge you, I hope you consider both points of view in your deliberation. Thank you very much.
My name is John Weiler. I live on West 110th Street. I'm here to speak on behalf of Wishfish and their West 108th Street project. I'd also like to say I've been really impressed by how civil my neighbors are, and I appreciate that. I've lived in the neighborhood all my life. I remember when I was a young person, the Mountain Valley had a lot of abandoned buildings, and the neighborhood wasn't as safe as it was now. I think nonprofits like Wishfish made the neighborhood a lot better when they started renovating apartments and building well-maintained, safe, affordable apartments. And now we have even more neighbors who care about the Mountain Valley and its future. I want my community to continue to be a mixed income, diverse, welcoming place. Too many neighborhoods in our city and in Manhattan are gentrifying, pricing out lower income families and seniors on fixed incomes. And we should all do our fair share. And I think we need to live up to our moral responsibility to help all of our fellow citizens who are struggling to get by. Wishfish develops quality housing and maintains it as a community asset. So I strongly urge Community Board 7 to support this important development. Thank you.
We now enter the call of the executive session. Only for a business session, board members will have an opportunity to speak or to ask questions. Just arbitrarily, Roberta is going to start on my right and pass the mic to any board member who wishes to speak.
So this is certainly a dilemma. We definitely need affordable housing, but I empathize also with those that need their cars for a variety of reasons, whether they be medical or for work-related issues. But I want to look at an option that I don't know if the committee has looked at it, and that is looking at either angle or perpendicular parking that has the potential of providing more parking space in the general vicinity, trying to identify streets or other locations. This is not a unique situation. If you go up to Washington Heights, there are spaces there, but there are angled parking. So I guess I'd like to bring this up to the chairs of the appropriate committees to look at if there has been any look at the possibility of having angled or perpendicular parking in order to increase parking.
We have one public speaker who has not spoken yet. So if you could just, spell your name. Yeah, Tom.
My name is Ursula Flori Roman.
You're gonna spell that for me, aren't you? We're not gonna have time.
I-R-M-E-L-A. Ursula in American. Flori. F-L-O-R-I-G. Hyphen Roland. R-O-W-L-A-N-D.
Julie, the way it's pronounced. Exactly.
Thank you.
I am speaking for my severely disabled, wheelchair-bound husband and myself as a 70-year-old around-the-clock caregiver. I'm also a member of Safe Manhattan Valley. We've been living here for over 20 years. This is our home. In previous hearings, I pointed out how important a car and a parking garage is for us to lead merely the semblance of a normal life. We do not want to be warehoused away in a nursing home in the boondocks where we would not need a car. I have described how totally unsuitable public transportation is for my husband. The New York Times recently described how the city fails for disabled residents as far as public transportation goes. Wheelchair accessible cabs are totally undependable too. Lately, we have lost street parking to bike lanes and city bikes. On top of everything else, every event manager seems to pick our neighborhood for their various events. The cul-de-sac of 106th Street is one such place for the film industry. They come in like locusts, eating away at our parking space. I'm upset, excuse me. They run their trucks for up to 2 days in a row and polluting the air. No problem if the city can make a dime. I implore all of you who make the decision about destroying our garages. You could be in a wheelchair one day too and need a car.
Go back to our business section.
I'm a car owner.
The Transportation Committee has looked at a couple of locations where there are possibility of angled parking, and Councilmember Mark Levine's office has been leading the charge on that.
I'm a car owner, and I couldn't own it if I didn't have a spot in the garage. My car represents more than just transportation. It represents family trips, family vacations, and memories. I believe the garages should stay. Car owners have lost street parking, affordable parking in large numbers. After years of paying taxes on parking, repairs, maintenance, tolls, registration fees, I feel it is unfair to demonize drivers like this. To put some 700 cars driving around looking for parking on the street is wrong. If you have ever looked for a parking spot on a cold night, north of 96th Street, there aren't any. The argument that I want to keep the garages and I'm against affordable housing is not true. The shortage of the housing we need is due to the real estate interests.
developers and greedy landlords. It is easier to throw automobile owners under the bus than to confront the cause of a problem. And this is cowardly. Please step up and save the garages.
I'm in support of the project. We're able to provide almost 300 people with a home that will change their lives. More and more seniors in our neighborhood need to remember that. And I think there's really nothing scarcer than land in New York City. So to just get it off cards to me would be really disappointing for our neighborhood.
I understand one of the problems is that garages are so expensive. But insurance is expensive, keeping a car is expensive. Perhaps there are alternatives like renting a car and getting some services. I know it might not be equivalent, but a lot of picking up cars in emotional things, it's not necessarily the most practical. As we know from the newspapers, there are 60,000 homeless people in the shelters every single night. And then there are additional homeless persons who are not in the shelters. We have a terrible problem in this neighborhood because of gentrification. The gentrifiers are here in force. Someone mentioned that a particular landlord has bought approximately 100 buildings, and they're in the process of renovating them, and their preferred tenants are not low-income people who will be there for long periods of time. So that means that as these low-income tenants are housed out by these gentrifiers, homelessness in Manhattan Valley is only going to increase. And homelessness in the city is about to increase. So we have to make a very hard choice. While our heart goes out, all of us, well, I shouldn't say all of us, while many of us who are concerned about this issue, our heart goes out to the people with the parking lots. We ask them to look above 100th Street where there are alternative equivalent parking garages with equivalent monies being charged. And make a hard, and we have to make a very hard choice. We have to weigh what's more important, affordable housing or parking. I think that we've got to develop the entire site without delay. We cannot risk a 5-year delay, as has been talked about at one point, where we might very well find ourselves with another mayor who is not interested in affordable housing. Thank you for your attention.
Tonight this comes down to what kind of market address is the marketplace to address the need for affordable housing, and is the marketplace to address the need for parking. I think it's pretty clear that the market can address the need for parking. We're not talking about people taking away people's cars. What we're talking about is something that really good parking garage free. And if I have that bill, I might be fined for it just as high as something that is normal. It's about 2/3 of what the market rate is in the general area. But there are parking garages, most of them are in their study, where they have the HPB to look at this last year. So, 3,100 garage spaces with 5% vacancy, which is about 300 spaces. More are being built every day. One of the vote is buildings that have already with parking in the buildings, so for people outside. So it's a question of what kind of market address. And also, I just want to mention during the 2000 census, they looked at the average income of people who own cars, people who don't own cars in District 9. All the districts in the city. In District 9, in today's dollars, the average income of people who don't own a car was $51,000, and people who don't own a car was $25,000.
Richard, I just have a question. The resolution sheet has 4 subparts on this, but the resolution that we have in front of us has 5 subparts, and the 5th one is clearly distinctive and might also, is something missing from the resolution sheet? Okay, you'll fix that? Right there.
I'm encouraged when we reach the community and citywide on the where we are in social evolution and understanding that as inconvenient as we may feel what it would be almost, it does not equal the imperative for housing and getting people on the streets. And especially in our particular community where we're one of the most rapidly growing senior citizens community, senior citizen communities, that affordable housing is the only choice. But I think what it also means is that this is an opportunity for the board community collaboration to redouble our efforts to work with the mayor's Vision Zero program and to define it, implement it, and perhaps expand the scope of it. So that the suggestion that perhaps there should be a feature of that plan for financing, for subsidizing parking. Do we understand what the perimeter parking facilities plan is for the city and the shuttle services? And one of the gripes that we've all had, either individually or as advocates, that you just mentioned, transportation for disabled citizens. You know, we have long-standing programs, some of which have been absolute disasters. And why shouldn't a transportation program to take a disabled person to a clinic appointment, shopping, to the theater? No, it is part of it because it's a feature of transportation of people who have needs to travel, senior citizens who own cars, to get around town easily without distress and so on. So that this is not just a plateau, I think, that we've reached that to me is very gratifying, but it is an opportunity to expand the program that we've been working on for several years now. We have the bicycle lanes, we have limited driving through Central Park, and we should revisit that. The transportation committee, the board should work more closely with the mayor and look at that plan, and maybe the scope is too limited. We need to work on it so that it's a concurrent development, the development of affordable housing and the development of the transportation plan that works hand in hand with what we want to do with housing. So I'm very happy the way this is going so far.
Excuse me.
Affordable housing.
People.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
I'm a little confused. I've lived in this community almost 61 years. I've heard people say they've been in this community 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And it seems as though you all claim the neighborhood as yours, and we have other people who live in the neighborhood who are looking for a secure place to live. In Douglas houses, I live in Douglas houses, NYCHA is forcing residents to move out of their community where their doctors are, their pharmacists are, their family are, supportive residents. Every night I'm looking at the senior by themselves outside. We take care of our seniors, but we need to put them somewhere that they have support housing, and in addition to having other residents look out for them. And I heard someone say that about poor people. Most of the seniors that live in Douglas houses have been professional people, nurses, police officers, and so on. They also pay taxes all their lives. Can't they have some place to live that is secure in the last years of their lives? This is what you all don't know. NYCHA is forcing them to move to Staten Island, Long Island, wherever there's a NYCHA resident. Why should they move out of their community? Like I said, I've been there 60 years. These are older residents, so they're older than 60. Don't they deserve a right to live their last days and somewhere support for the community that they know? I understand.
Folks, it's especially important not to avoid
when board members speak, and the reason is because you only encourage them to speak more.
I understand about the fact that you need your cards for work and maybe for your family member, but the people in Douglas houses are my family. And I'm going to support them if they need somewhere safe to live. We are not blood relatives, but we're community, and that's what we want to do with all of you who live up to 110th Street. But it sounds as though to me you claim the neighborhood as yours. I forgot about the people who have been there, sacrificed, raised their kids. I know people don't think much about Douglas houses, but that doesn't matter to me. They're human beings. Someone said inhumane. I think it's inhumane to not have someone have their last days and somewhere they can be comfortable in.
I just want to make a quick point that I made at the joint committee meeting a few weeks ago. I'm fortunate enough to live pretty close by and have both an apartment and a car that I park on the street. Parking will become more difficult potentially from more cars being out on the street, but we have to make a choice between people having a home or a car. It's quite clear that we should choose people having homes over cars. You can't have a car in the neighborhood if you don't have a place to live in the neighborhood.
Okay, so I've sat through all these meetings and I keep seeing a project that doesn't represent the neighborhood anymore. And I'm probably in a minority, but I've been looking at this a completely different way. And that is if you add up the number of parking people versus the number of housing we're trying to accommodate, it comes to 1,080 people. And I don't see that we have to choose one or the other. We have a city agency, we have a commitment that they are going to build something. We have land which is now available. We are breaking our own zoning that we work so hard to downzone with FAR on the table. And I'm not comfortable sitting here and hear arguments of people getting mad at each other because it's one or the other. That makes me sick, to be honest. Maybe it's because I had a bad day and I came in really wet. But the more I think about it, I think that there's a solution out there. And I think what we need to do, in spite of having had I'm the last person on the committee, by the way, that looked at the meeting minutes and created havoc for Richard and the committee, and I apologize for that. But I do feel deeply that when we look at this project, we're stuck in the mud. I hear people don't like cars, but we're moving in a different direction. There are going to be electric cars. There are going to be driverless cars. We're going to have mopeds. I don't know, we're going to have jetpacks in maybe 20 years. We won't even need that, but we'll need a charging station. You're going to need places for storage, other things. And I think we're looking way too short-sighted on a gift from HPD to be able to accommodate a lot of different things that we're not even thinking about. So my proposal is to accept components of what we have in our resolution, but ask that HPD go back and they have to accommodate at least half the number of cars. I'm not, because some people may, I'm using that as an arbitrary number. I don't want to compromise the housing. I know, that's why I'm looking at both sides of the table here. I'm not trying to diminish one need over the other. Obviously, my heart believes, because I live on the west side, it's in housing. But one of the things that makes living in New York nice when you're not a billionaire in a super tall, is having the option to spend what money you earn and spend it on what you want, like one of our board members, family trips, or somebody else uses it to get to work, or a policeman who has to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning because our transportation system is going to save money by perhaps closing down from 1 a.m. to 5. So I don't know that. But the thing is, we're not thinking forward enough about the needs of the community looking in 5 years. It's going to be a very different demographic. And I would ask this board to reconsider our resolution, but also send HPD back with the message that they have to accommodate the program that's currently on the site and the affordable housing.
Thanks.
I don't know if it's amendment or not. I just am very
We're
unhappy
we're
with
going
the
to,
way we're
what
moving.
we're going to do
It's
is
not
go
good enough.
through everybody's comments, and at the end of that, we're going to ask if anyone has any amendment.
Great. So that helps me as well. I'll briefly recap what I said at committee, which is that this is a very hard choice because we are presented with the need to choose among a variety of things, all of which are social goods. I am convinced that parking in this neighborhood is different than parking in my neighborhood down in the West 70s. I think it is more of a luxury where I am. I think it is more of an essential service up there. At the end of the day, I'm also I want to touch on something that actually hasn't been the subject of a lot of testimony here, but that is the fair share doctrine and the issue of all or a disproportionate number of supportive housing and homeless shelter services being located in areas north of where I live, for example. I'm troubled by that. All of that being said, I find myself persuaded that the dearth, the scarcity of land on which to build affordable housing on this scale is something that we can't pass up. And so my comment at committee was that on balance, despite there being a series of competing social goods, the one that gets my vote would be pretty affordable housing. However, since the committee meeting, I have learned something that troubles me deeply, and that is that the proposal, despite what I thought I was reassured before, the proposal is to build this facility using non-union labor and not paying prevailing wage. If I'm wrong about that, somebody please tell me right now. But I don't think so, because I've been trying to be careful about this. I believe it is incumbent upon city agencies to require that we build with union labor, or at least with the benefits that a union shop brings. And that's not just an enhanced wage, although that enhanced wage is the result of a negotiation between co-equal, very large parties who have equal clout. But it's also a site safety personnel and program that I find to be very important. We heard about a young man who fell to his death from an 11-story building just a month ago. He was actually wearing his safety harness, but it wasn't attached to anything. I don't believe that happens on union jobs because there's somebody who's walking around saying, hey, your thing isn't attached. And then there's the outreach to the community and the apprenticeship programs that come with union labor as well. Given the nature of this project, I might be persuaded that paying a prevailing wage and benefits and some of the outreach capabilities might be good enough without actually requiring a bona fide union shop. But this is something that I find difficult, so when the time comes, I'll be asking that we either condition our approval, if that is the way we go, we condition our approval on that, on securing those benefits for the workers in the community. So in terms of how the affordable housing works, my vote would be to say yes, but I now have a caveat against that. Thank you.
I'm in favor of this project, although having heard what Marcus said, I agree with him also. I don't think this should be built with minimum labor, not prevailing wages. In addition, I also support the idea, to be included with the resolution later on, that we should conditionally also should facilitate the process of transferring parking from these facilities to parking in the area, so that the current parkers don't have to be on their own when it comes time to use those parking spaces, so that they get facilitated into existing parking in the area. I think that's important for us to support this project.
Over the years that I've been on Community Board 7, I have found that we are at our best when we try to accommodate everybody. I don't believe we should fall into the trap that it's this use or that use. All of these folks are our neighbors, all of these folks matter, and we should try to accommodate their needs as best we can. And it seems to me that at the very minimum, to accommodate Audrey's worry that another mayor might have a different use for the eastern portion, if the entire land is transferred to Wisfish at one time, whether they use it or not at that particular, but if it's transferred to them, I think that takes away the problem of another mayor making a different decision. And if we kept the eastern garage open for 5 years or however long Wisfish was planning to do before they actually constructed on that part of the site, we would at least accommodate some of these folks. Now, on the Transportation Committee, we are looking at angled parking. We're working with Councilmember Levine on other alternatives. Nobody's a bigger mass transit booster than I am, but it doesn't fit for everybody. And some of these folks really, really need their cars. Some of them are going to take jobs away. It's not an either or. Everybody matters. It's people versus people, as one of the folks said earlier. And I think we ought to be, we're at our best when we can accommodate everybody, and I think that's what we ought to try to do.
I see this a little differently. We've been discussing whether there's parking or there's affordable housing, and I don't see the community board. The community board is not in the position of denying housing or denying parking. If people can and people can and will pay the market price for parking, they'll get parking. If people can and will pay the market price for an apartment, they'll get an apartment. The question here is, what do we subsidize? That's the question. Do we subsidize housing for seniors, or do we subsidize parking? The city has limited resources, limited financial resources, limited land. The resources are limited and they're finite. And the question is, how do we use those limited resources? What is the best possible use for those limited resources? And we face a choice tonight between using those limited resources to house seniors or to store cars. And I think when you look at it that way, the answer is clear.
Roberta, I'm looking at a paragraph here on page 9. Community Board 7 urges Wisfish and the city to provide assistance and information to enable the parking, etc., etc., etc. And I guess I would ask the committee, what do you mean by urge? Is it a polite, somewhat limp request? I can't see Wisfish having any interest in looking for parking or parking facilities, or the city for that matter. So part of my concern is, and I agree with what a number of people have said, when people talk about storage of cars, we sound as if people have extra toys that they want to keep until next Christmas. For many people, having parking facilities is a livelihood. So it's not a matter of storing cars. So it's almost as important as where one lives. So my question is, what did you mean by urge, which sounds, as I said, terribly limp? And can that be strengthened, or did the committee and committees give any further thought to what they had in mind?
We use the word urge because that's what committees have used, where we don't want to deny a motion, but we would think that the situation can be better. If there's a stronger word that you want to use, we would like to express it in the strongest possible terms. It is true that Wisfish has no particular interest in assisting parkers, but there is, and this will be tonight on if we pass this. This will be a major political football, and the issue is not going to go away. So all we're saying is we recognize the problem and we are very anxious that the city address it. But if you want to amend the language, that's fine.
I have no language to offer at this point, just the idea, can that concept that somebody has a responsibility to the people who really need parking,
Yeah, we can,
and lay that responsibility on them.
and as often happens when someone suggests a change in the resolution, I ask that person to craft something. I'll incorporate it tomorrow.
I don't know that I can. Better words.
Incorporate something into a resolution.
I'll do my best.
Wait, how are you going to incorporate something into a resolution tomorrow that we're voting on today?
Well, the sense of what I think the proposed is that we say something like, we believe the city has a responsibility to assist these parkers, and that we strongly urge them do so, something like that.
Rich, if I may, I'll render your question because as Richard said earlier, once we make our comments, he's going to ask everybody that wishes to propose an amendment. And Blanche has provided what would be an introduction to an amendment that I plan to introduce. So in fact, we can have a vote on language tonight.
Okay.
It may or may not, but I think off of the Paige and Andrew and Blanche have articulated some of the concerns that I was going to articulate. And what's especially distressing to me is the fact that this issue has been presented and portrayed as an even more issue between people who support affordable housing and people who are very legitimately concerned with the plight of our neighbors and fellow community members who will be severely inconvenienced and in some cases severely threatened by the loss of the parking that they've come to rely on for many years. I don't think it should be a choice, and I don't think it has to be a choice. For one thing, and I put this as a form of a question to Paige and to Richard, but did anyone consider requiring HPD to come forward with a proposal to build that included garage space, a replacement of the garage space on site? The basic premise of our consideration is a request for zoning variance. So I assume that with the city and wish the objective involved that a structure encompassing affordable housing and parking could be shoehorned into a variance. And I don't know why that can't be the case, so that we accommodate both these. Certainly everybody on this board, I suspect almost everybody in the community, supports the building and providing of affordable senior housing, supportive housing. I don't see why we can't do both.
Can I have a go at that answer first? Back in April, when we first met on this project in reality, I don't know, can you guys hear me? The issue was, we asked about the parking then, and we asked about accommodating, and the response was, while they were doing their site fact finding, and we can verify because I see some of the team members here, they felt it was too expensive to excavate further. But what we learned in November and October presentation is that the site is already sloped, and there is a floor that's halfway below grade. So rather than cut the baby in half, I'm of your opinion too, that if we ask them to reconsider in that below grade space with stackable, because we did, I think in the last two meetings, one of the last two meetings, I think we talked about stackable units that you could put down there.
that maybe they can accommodate, because then the building would be lifted up, we don't go further down, and we can take advantage of the FAR that's still on the table. Because that's what bothers me the most, is we're not getting the maximum development potential from what this site will be able to achieve if we break the zone. So that's my recollection.
Thanks, Paige. I think with that in mind, and whenever Richard would decide that it's appropriate to propose language, but what I said essentially intend to propose as amendment is, and I think Blanche was being polite when she described the word urgent as slim. I think, and we often, we certainly do it in preservation, we often make approvals contingent on actual action. And what I'm going to propose is that our approval of this project be conditional on the two stakeholders, Wish Fish, and HPP come back with a proposal that either incorporates substantially enough parking to offset the parking that will be removed, or a specific site or specific plan that will provide equivalent parking. And that we not approve this project unless and until they do so.
Could you write that out?
Yeah.
We're now in a 60-day ULURP period, and our the reason we are holding the vote tonight at the December 5th meeting is that our portion of the ULURP ends on December 26th, and if we they will not be coming back to us. We can ask for things tonight, we can change our resolution, we can choose to vote or not vote, but basically we're within the window of the urban land use review process. So if we vote tonight, one way or the other, it then goes to the borough president's office, and they have 30 days, and then when they finish their 30 days, it goes to city planning, then it goes to city hall. So I just want to remind everybody of that. Susan.
I agree with what everyone has said here, particularly what Jay has said. For many years, I had a car on 71st Street, and I drove around and around and around at night looking for parking because I worked 40 miles outside the city. So I drove 20,000 miles a year to get to my job. I bristle a bit when people discuss whether or not someone's entitled to have a car just for leisure. Paul, I feel for you that your family is using a car for family outings rather than to go to a job, to go to a medical emergency. I think we're all entitled to have a car if you want to, for whatever reason. However, I'm totally in favor of affordable housing. So I agree, Andrew, the notion that it shouldn't have to be one or the other. It's not, one for Conway, one for Conway. Love it if we could find some way within the time constraints you described, Roberta, to address this issue. Because the thought that there would be all these extra cars driving around doing that twirl that I had to do for many years looking for parking is wrenching, particularly when the city bikes have taken away a lot of the parking, and there will be other big construction projects in the district. The 79th Street boat basin renovation, and also the Museum of Natural History, those will be disruptions that will cause a lot more parking disruption. I love the Thanksgiving Day parade, but the night before the parade and the West Side medical emergency, we were screwed. The traffic was unbelievable, and that was simply from the streets being closed off for the balloons. I shudder to think what could happen when we have all this construction around all of us in terms of traffic in our district.
Okay, I'm gonna make a statement and make a question. Okay. First is, I'm not qualified to vote on this. I've been working with Ms. Fish on this proposal for a number of years. But I would like to ask Ms. Fish if they could answer some of the questions that have been posed here this evening. Nobody's given an opportunity to answer those questions. And if they would like a chance, could they make themselves available? I think it might be useful for you or Wish or if somebody's here from the city to explain what has been done to investigate the possibility of putting a few rails of parking on the bottom of this building and maybe making the building a little higher, or any other alternatives such as looking for additional land on which to build. Just you know, what has happened in the 6 or 8 months since we first met, and since then we all expressed concern for parkers. What specifically has been done? I know from my perspective, the original proposal did not have any kind of study of available parking. It was done at our request. And it's true that there's a 5% vacancy rate of 3,000 spaces. But unfortunately, it does not amount to 300, it amounts to 150. And that's a matter of just pure arithmetic, it's not a matter of opinion. Could you explain what you've done, why you have concluded, if you have, that parking on site is not practical, what the economics are, and what conversations, if any, you've had with the garage operator?
So my name is Paul Freitag.
Also identify yourself.
My name is Paul Freitag. I'm the Executive Director of the West Side Federation for Senior and Supportive Housing. I will address the part of the question about what we have done. And at that point, I will hand over to Norma Greenberger from Philip of Deep Associates, who has been studying the parking on behalf of the environmental studies that have been done for the project. So we have a very long history of studying parking on the site. And I want to start by saying that Wiz Fish is in no way opposed to parking. It would have been wonderful if, in fact, we could have worked out the parking for this building. I think that would have been a win-win solution. We would very much liked that solution. There have been a number of parking studies that have been done. The first 2 were done by Nelson Nygaard. One was prepared in March of 2016. There were a number of comments that were done in response to that. And so they updated it, and that came out in June of 2016. That looked for sort of what would be I think the other important thing to say about the site is that we've done extensive borings and geotechnical studies of the site. And the site has very, very high bedrock. The bedrock almost starts at exactly the level where the garages exist. The garages go down exactly to bedrock. So putting parking underneath the new building would involve excavating into bedrock, which is exceedingly expensive. So the initial studies done by Nelson Nygaard really looked at what could be the possibility of putting replacement parking really going extensively down into the bedrock. The results were that it was cost prohibitive. That essentially the cost of putting in the parking, in order to recoup the cost of building that parking, you would be having parking costs of $1,400 or $1,500 per month. So that's the cost that they would need to take in from the parking in order to pay to build the parking. So then what we did actually in July and August of 2016, we said, okay, maybe we can't do all the parking, but let's figure out what we could do in terms of accommodating some parking. So we worked with Philip and Associates, who are parking specialists. They helped us develop an RFP, and we went out to national parking providers, deep pocket, well-capitalized parking providers, and asked if they would give us a proposal in order to partner with us to provide parking into the building. This would provide parking for only 186 spaces on the west building, so it's not fulfilling the full amount, but it would provide some parking. And frankly, what we did was when we met with the committee, we've met previously, we described the very rich community services that we want to provide for this project, namely a clinic that will serve people in need of affordable health care, regardless of their insurance status or their ability to pay, community meeting space for storage for the ambulances. We would eliminate a great deal of that community facility space in order to fit the parking into it. And we came up with sort of what would be the most quote-unquote cost-effective parking solution that would still get about 186 spaces under the building. When they came back, when we asked them to give us proposals, they once again, including the existing parking garage operator, refused to give us proposals because the responses would have been so uneconomic. The price to do parking spaces, what they had to charge for monthly spaces, was getting up north of $800 per space. So it wasn't worth it for them to build the parking. So I very much wish that we could, in fact, accommodate both housing and parking. I feel as though we at great expense to Wisfish, in terms of literally hiring consultants and also having our own staff work on it, really study the problem. But essentially, it is not economically feasible to put parking underneath the building. And then with regard to, I was going to head over to Norvell if you have questions about.
Yes, before you remember, sure. The city's proposal was to wait 5 years to develop the East Building.
Right.
Could you tell us what the thought process was there? And was that an effort to accommodate parkers or?
Yes, yes, thank you. The initial plan that we had with the city was to develop all 3 parking garages at one time. And one of the modifications that we made to our plan along the way was not to develop a 3rd parking garage for 5 years in order to lessen the impact so that it wouldn't all happen at one time.
Can I wait until after the presentation? Yeah, just to be clear on that.
At the November 20th committee meeting, the resolution was made to expedite. It wasn't Wisfish's, it was the board members who were present at the committee voted in favor of changing to expedite to have both buildings built at the same time. That was not a choice of Wisfish, that was a choice of the joint committees.
Roberta, may I borrow this? I have a question. Is there not an alternative for parking rather than going under a building? I have seen parking facilities, and I'm not going to describe it very coherently, but it's like sliver parking. It's above ground. It's, for want of a better description, open air. Is that not another possibility where you don't have to go underground and deal with bedrock? And has that ever been considered? That's all above ground. And it's sliver. I see it a lot.
I think our goal was, if we were going to be building parking, to try to do at least an amount that would begin to respond to the loss of parking. So what we were looking at were solutions that would be able to generate, say, over 150 spaces as well. So we, yes, yes.
So I gather that the reason that providing underground parking is so expensive is essentially because of the extra interest cost. What about adding 3 stories to the buildings and having 3 stories of parking starting on the street?
We did not look at the possibility. It would result in having 3 stories of parking. That would be at street level, and then the building would be above that. I think that
cheaper than trying to exit.
Yes.
You're looking for variance anyway. Why not consider it? Or the above ground? This would be above ground.
So no one said
Lowest level would be street level.
I just comment that my name is Bill Simon, I'm the architect of Techno Architects. Firstly, aside from the impacts on the street frontage of the building, which was a very important part of the design to activate this street frontage and building it part of the community, building above grade was also very expensive because the residential building above has to come down through the parking and be supported by the structure for the parking, and there would have to be a way to accommodate that structure, which would be as equally expensive as the subway parking approach. We also looked, this was brought out in the committee meeting a couple weeks ago. We did look at parking in the rear yard, and that yields only 30-some spaces. It's a constrained space, but also means cutting the tunnel through the building to get to the rear yard. And as Paul said, it was not a feasible number of spaces per common. And by the way, just as a minor point, we're not seeking variances, we're seeking rezoning. And the building, if the rezoning is approved, the building complies with the proposed zoning district and does not seek any variances. But you could seek a variance.
Hi, I'm Margot Greenberger from Oakland Associates. Our firm prepared the EIS for the project. I know there's been a lot of questions and comments about parking, so I just want to let you know that as part of the environmental review, we did perform a detailed parking analysis looking at whether there would be a shortfall in the future, both in the overnight people that store their cars there and during the daytime. As has been mentioned, there's 675 spaces in the garages combined. About 10% of those vehicles are cars that move in and out during the workday. The rest are mostly stored and used for occasional trips. We did identify a shortfall. This is not considered an impact by seeker. There were some questions about cars circling. We did look at that as well. The people that use the garage, there's about 660 monthly subscribers to the garage that live in a pretty large area, extending down to about 60th, 70th Street, further north in the garage as well. So while there will be potentially people looking for parking more than they are today, it's not going to be something where it's concentrated vehicles on the street looking for parking. These are people that come from a much larger radius.
I have a question. I have a question.
Did you consider dedicating the eastern side to parking, building a larger garage, and building up a little higher on the western side to accommodate more of the affordable housing? Just put all the affordable housing on the western side.
What we did look at on the eastern side is that it's currently not a very efficient garage. The garage is about 9 cars. We did look at adding stackers and trying to work within the context of the existing structure. We believe we could increase the amount of parking there to 125 cars. We did not look at the possibility of knocking it down and building a new parking garage.
I got a question I want to ask.
I will say we looked extensively at the county parking, and it was even less cost effective.
I got a question. It sounds like your mind is already made up on this development, on which way you want to go. It sounds like there's no flexibility in this. And I'm looking at this structure right here on this website. Is that the case?
I guess what I'm saying is that over the last 2 years that we've been working on this project, we've extensively studied the parking problem, and I will say we sincerely
No. Not the parking problem, the building. We're talking about the building.
I guess what I'm saying is the problem of whether or not we could accommodate parking into the building and have that be part of the building. So we really spent a great deal of time looking at that. And if I sound discouraged about it, it's because all of the effort and work that we put into that has not resulted in the ability to cost effectively such that it would, a market-minded parking operator would make the decision to build parking.
Thank you. All right, any other questions on parking?
No, not parking. I want to go back to
Not no speeches. Questions?
Right.
Exists in our target area, do not have 100% capacity at the moment.
That's correct.
Okay. Have you thought about some way of subsidizing those empty spots in order to provide additional parking?
I think that would be a question that we would need to have with the city agencies, like potentially with the elected officials, as to what would be the source of money for that subsidy.
Can I make a point there? One question, if we're thinking about subsidies or if we're thinking about alternate parking, is who would be entitled to get that subsidy? And would it be the people who are grandfathered in, who've been getting subsidized parking for decades? Or would new people? Of course it is. If it's not market rate, then it's subsidized. But
All right, we're gonna go back to,
Excuse me, we have any questions from the
we're
board?
gonna go back to, going around the table. Any other Peter or?
I also wanted to say, one other thing, obviously I qualify myself with the involvement of Wood Church. I'm also an MS-54 parent. Are there any MS-54 parents in the room besides myself? Please raise your hand. Current MS-54 parents. Okay. I just want to say, my MS-54 student was born 2 months premature, spent a month in NICU, spent 2 weeks at home before he went back into the hospital for RSV. I'm very cognizant of the health issues. I read this very carefully. So on that basis, I'm conflicted as well. I'm a parker in the area, I'm conflicted on that basis as well. So for all these reasons, I'm not going to vote. But obviously, the one I can't vote is a more done proposal. Everybody here has an interest in this, and a whole bunch of equities here. And I hope everybody knows, and I've heard people say, yeah, there are different equities, and that's all I'm going to say. Oh, one other thing. The zoning height is 120 feet. That's the district we do. So anything, foot for foot, when you trade parking, you lose housing. It's direct equation. That's the zoning resolution. That's not.
I agree with some of my fellow committee members, with Paige and Sherry, particularly. And I'm not, when it comes to the parking issue, and I'm not really convinced that there have been enough studies on the parking, being able to get parking. There are a number of ways I think that this could be looked at. I haven't seen the street itself. We talked about angle parking there. There are other ways. I went to the playground. I walked through the playground a number of days ago, and I know it's we're rebuilding in the playground is probably not up for grabs, but it seems to me that that's still an option. Putting parking below that and finding a way to, especially because of the slope of the street. What I'm saying is that basically there's got to be further studies on the parking before I'm convinced that no parking here is a way to go. I really believe that the community, we saw enough of the community come before us where the large representation of the community that wants parking. I think most of us are very much for the residential portion, obviously, but I'm not convinced that this is the answer at this point.
Hi, I was very struck by Paige's comments that we are not accommodating future possible transportation options. But as I thought about it, it occurred to me that the way to address future transportation needs and options is not by building parking spots that were designed 75 years ago. If you want to move forward, and we need to move forward and not just snap old things in place as a placeholder. I was also very struck by the statistic given by the engineers saying that they looked at the parking. 10% of those cars are used daily, implying those are the working ones, 90% are storage, implying those are for family emergencies, family use, and, unusual working hours. I feel for families that need a car because of handicapped and disabled people in their family. And I feel for people who need a car for working. But I also feel that building up parking spots, so that everybody really can park, so that those small percentage of people who desperately need a car will be able to get a car parking spot, is not the way to do it. We need to go about that differently. People who have to use their car and therefore a car parking spot. The city needs to find a whole other way to identify them and give them these spots, because people like me, I run a car for the past 15 years in the city. I use it only to leave the city. I don't use it to get around the city. And I did a simple math about a year ago. Parking in my neighborhood is more than $600 a month. Get the cost of the car, get insurance. I can rent a car anytime I need to, and then purchase. I can Uber to New Jersey anytime I want to and spend less money than parking. And I think a lot of people, like me, are going to end up making that decision now that we have so many more options for transportation in the city.
Hi, my name is Misha, and I actually live in the Mountain Valley. And I, also echo a number of the comments that I heard tonight resonated for me. I don't believe this is a cars versus affordable housing debate. And I really also feel, just personally that I have tremendous sensitivity to the affordable housing issue. I pass homeless seniors every day on the street and in the subway, and it's very painful to me to know that this is a very acute issue. I also, when I was growing up in Calgary, my mom was a retired nurse, and we would be taken on the weekends to the geriatric palliative care hospital where she worked to visit with the seniors that lived there because nobody visited them. So, to know that there are people that could be home, that could be housed, that could be accommodated, that really need this is very important to me. But I also, living in the Manhattan Valley, hear regularly from my neighbors about the concern for affordable parking, and that the loss of the affordable parking and accessible parking is a tremendous concern for these people who are working people, and it's a concern to me that I hear. So I applaud the proposal, I applaud the efforts that Liz Fish has been making to accommodate the affordable housing issue and making real efforts that we're seeing today. But I also feel very strongly that more effort needs to be made to accommodate the parking. And I think what Andrew was talking about adding a little bit more effort to studies for possibilities, not just for parking garages, but on-street parking, to hear more information about all of the parking evaluations and studies that Liz Fish's team developed. I really feel that that needs to be further explored. Thank you.
Let me address the resolution, the way it's written, and my view about it. The resolution, there are 5 parts to the resolution. The first 4 are essentially zoning issues and land disposition. The 5th resolution, which is on page 12, urges the city to expedite the transfer of title to the eastern side to Wishibush without waiting 5 years, which is what the city's proposal is, to wait 5 years. This is one of the hardest decisions I've ever come to since I've been on the community board.
And it's not just a question of parking versus homes or affordable housing. It's not, nobody is suggesting an alternative of either building a garage or building affordable housing. There is a garage, there are three garages, they exist. So something will be taken away from people. My view is, I mean, my original view was that the eastern site should be dedicated in perpetuity to parking, and that the western site of the building be enlarged to accommodate the loss of affordable housing. I was willing to go along with the city's proposition of delaying it for 5 years to give parkers an opportunity to sort things out. The board overwhelmingly overruled that concept, and instead of going along with a 5-year plan, they're going to expedite it so that there would be no delay. My view is that the minimum we can do here for the parkers is to agree to the city's proposed 5-year delay. Jay, if you want to add a motion of some kind.
Richard, before, just so everybody knows, the vote at for a committee meeting was 17 for, 2 against, and public members was 4 for and 1 against.
Let's, why don't we wait for a motion? I know you've spoken, but we have a motion, and then you'll have a chance to address the motion. Okay.
On November 20th, I asked the representative of HPD about what would happen with the property on the eastern site. And the representative of HPD said that the property on the eastern site would not be transferred to Wisfish until right before that portion was developed, which means that if we don't agree on this entire project at once, it is most likely that there will never be affordable housing on the eastern side.
Well, since we're talking about that,
Let's get it clarified.
the fact is,
HPD is here, let's now do clarify.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify the question.
Good night, my name is Kevin Harris. So just to clarify, the plan as it's intended right now is to dispose of the site. And just as you laid it out. Excuse me a second. What the board has before you tonight is an entire project which encompasses the west and the eastern site. And the intention is to have affordable housing developed the way the board has the plan before it right now. So the approvals that goes through the entire process is going to be for affordable housing on both sites. Not disposing of the site immediately does not mean that the site is not going to be developed as affordable housing. Because the entire project is going to be voted on for affordable housing on both sites. If for some by chance that something else was supposed to be envisioned for that site, we have to come back to the board and go through another process because it's been approved as one project. The timing or the phasing of the disposition doesn't mean that the site is not going to be developed. It just means that for phasing purposes, it's going to be developed at a later time, but it's envisioned as one total project before the board.
But the delay of 5 years, when we have a new mayor who may have very different values, means that there is a possibility that
this is the third time you've mentioned that. Let's move on a little bit. You can disagree, but can I get
Yeah, I'd like to try to address, Audrey, I'd like to address your point this way. Will there be one land disposition agreement or two?
My understanding is that there's going to be
There'll be one land disposition agreement for the eastern and the western site, obligating the city to transfer it. It's just that the actual transfer will not take place until they're ready to build. Is that correct?
It's two.
It is, then I may have a point.
Of course. To be
And
that's what we realized
last
time.
I'm sorry, I want to
No, I'm saying the two land disposition agreements are for the two sites, but it's still one project that's going to be included.
Okay, so my next question is, when will the land disposition agreement covering the eastern or delayed site, will that be signed at the same time as the first one, or will it be put off some number of years?
My understanding is that it would not be at the same time.
Right.
As the rest of the, as the first.
Does Westminster Council agree with that?
It doesn't. It's HPV.
When the property is transferred, there's a land disposition agreement. It restricts what can be built on the property. So when the first site is transferred, it gets a land disposition agreement. When the second site is transferred, it gets a land disposition agreement. The reason that is one project is that it is how it's been studied and conceptualized and approved, so that if changes were to be made, it would have to come back.
Is there any, Carol, is there any reason why the disposition of both sites can't be done at the same time with the understanding that one will not be developed in 5 years?
It's not done that.
In order to do that and to maintain the garage, Wishfish would have to own the garage for 5 years. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, the city's owned it for how long?
Yeah, but that's the city.
But that could be done, could it not?
It's actually that the city maintain ownership and operate as a garage.
Her point, Audrey's point is that we can't rely on intentions because the city doesn't have an intention. It's the mayor. So the question is, can the whole thing be bound up legally at once with the understanding that building can be delayed?
While I understand the point that I'm trying to make is that if you look that we're going through is for one project for two sites. In the event that something else was to happen on the eastern site, it cannot just happen on its own. You have to go through another process similar to what we do today to get those approvals done. So we're envisioning this as one project, and that's the goal that we inventory.
Okay. Robert?
Maybe you can hear me. I think Audrey raised such an important point, and I think it's at the crux of all of this.
It's a good question for numbers and comments.
Well, this is a comment in defense of Audrey.
No, but I think they would have.
Well, no, it's on the topic that we're talking about. So can I, yeah, come on, let me. Roberta, where you going? Come over here.
Why are y'all being so rude? I don't get that.
Thank you. What is point is probably one of the most crucial points of this, and it's forward looking because the fact of the matter is that regardless of all the technical and beautiful design and so on, it's a political environment. And the mayor calls the shots at the end of the day. Now, this, I think a lot of this can be simplified, well, at this time of juncture by borrowing from a real estate practice for the benefit of those that I'm a realtor. There's something called a non-assignment clause. So my proposal to satisfy at least the way that I hear working is to add into our resolution a sound, the class good language that, Mark and Richard is doing better, that is that clearly states, therefore, we would set we would approve this project along with the other features with a non-assignment clause that would protect the integrity of the project and protect the project, which the young man is talking about, that single concept, and that neither Wishfish, now there's no likelihood that Wishfish is going to change because 40 years of sound work and Shelley is going to make sure that but there's no likelihood that the city is going to change with a new mayor. I mean, it's just going to happen. And this is real estate. Okay, and this is up for grabs and up for sales of the biggest bidder. So the clause, the non-assignment, would protect the project and protect the plan that was originally envisioned. So, that's that's a kind of a pendant to your concern, if you accept that. But that's what I would like to see in the resolution, a clause, a non-assignment clause. And that would be binding to Worcester and to HPD.
Oh,
All right, let's, Jay, you want to make your motion? Then we can have something to discuss.
I apologize, I put it out, but I fell asleep myself, so I'll read it. And I just added to it to take care of the problem.
Yeah, good, thanks. Good, good, good.
Can I-
Go, Jay. Go.
So, I'm happy to read, okay. So I am offering, the following amendment. First, on page 9, it's the first complete paragraph, beginning with the words community point 7. I am offering the amendment so that that paragraph will read as follows. Community point 7 is cognizant of the dislocation caused to monthly parkers in the garages, and therefore conditions as approval Wish and the city submitted a revised proposal that includes alternative equivalent, alternative on-site parking equivalent to existing parking, or alternative off-site of specific location parking, which, excuse me, or alternative off-site parking, site-specific, which provides equivalent parking to car parking. I know it's a little complicated, but the thrust is they have to submit an alternative proposal that provides either on-site or off-site or site-specific parking equivalent to the parking that exists now.
Equivalent meaning 650.
Whatever the number of spaces.
The same price, the same price.
I don't think it's appropriate to include prices.
That's what we're talking about.
If it's unclear, I'm talking about the equivalent number of spaces.
Is there a second?
Is there a second?
I have a question.
I also.
Is there a second?
Is there a second?
Is there a second?
No.
I have a question, Jay.
We have a second. All right.
And I'd like to
Discussion
speak.
only on Jay's motion.
And hold on one
Roberta?
second, sorry.
He had his hand up first.
I'd like you to consider.
George, just hang on 1 second. I had to take my pill, so I can't write down what you're saying. Okay, I'm almost with you.
I respectfully ask Jay to include the words affordable alternate sites. I don't want to just leave it, it has to be affordable. So comparably affordable to what the current plan. So you can find alternate sites, and then you need $800 I would like to see the word affordable, affordable, complementary affordable sites.
Jay, do you accept that?
Do you accept that?
I mean, I'd like to get a sense. I mean, it's something of a can of worms to start talking about pricing and what parking is affordable. I mean, personally, I have no idea what this parking
As it
is.
stands now, the motion does not include the words affordable.
I would ask the board to include the word affordable, comparably affordable.
Wait, I have a question. If we're talking about 5 years from now, there will be escalation, even if it's 1.5% to what the park is currently paying now. So is there a word we could, I like your idea, if it's
Wait,
not
let's-
comparable, but mention affordable housing at a suitable.
Housing for
Can we discuss the
amendment.
the proposed amendment?
Okay, full disclosures, I have before I'm the president of the board of the West Side Federation of Senior Supportive Housing. Making this a condition for this project, as much as I respect and am concerned about the parkers and the parking, is to me unthinkable. The project must go ahead. The concern is for how to accommodate the needs of those who are parking that out. And to burden Wisfish or the city to do this, to come up with a plan after a year and a half of looking into plans and looking at things, is to making that conditional is totally, I think, an unacceptable condition. If there was, as other suggestions, that the elected officials, the city, HPD, and with the assistance of Wisfish, should do everything in its ability to try to develop alternative plans to accommodate those people who are being displaced, the parking is being displaced. That's real, okay? But to make it conditional, it's basically saying, this is equivalent to that. And I'm sorry, I don't think 90% of the people here would agree with that under any circumstances.
It's the time. If you have a new point to make on the amendment, make it. If you just want to say.
Well, I just said.
Shelley, please stop.
I think Jay is very well intentioned in coming up with this amendment, and George hit the nail on the head in your comment, George, but in the exact opposite way of what you intended. If we're mandating affordable, we're going down a horrendous slippery slope. What are we going to do? Force Wisfish to build a new garage somewhere else and make it at below market rate? And we heard from them, there are no new garages being built because they're not market affordable. The market doesn't allow for people to build 600-car garages. If we're going to force them to build a 600-car garage somewhere in the district, it would cost, the parking spots could be $2,000 a month. And then if we're going to mandate that they have to offer those spots for $350, there are any number of questions. How do we decide who gets these spots? Are you grandfathered in just because you've had a spot for decades? What happens if the spot opens up? Who gets it? How would we handle this complete deviation from market economics? And do we really want to go down that path as a mandate for developing this site, that they have to come up with 600 additional spots somewhere else in the district and make them available at $350 a month? That would be absurd.
It's not just. All right, let's, we have a couple more comments. Let's keep this short and then we'll vote on the amendment.
But even if it's part of this district, are we going to mandate at $350 a month?
That's another debate.
Wisfish is in the business of doing supportive housing. They're not in the business of providing parking spaces. So I think the amendment is totally inappropriate in our case.
If there's the money that's spent on doing, let's say, an off-site parking garage, that's less money for affordable housing for seniors. Also, the need for parking in front of 9% people park there, it's long-term storage for their cars. If the garages are demolished, a certain number of people are going to decide that it's not worth owning a car driving it. And that is actually a good thing. We don't know what percentage that is because studies show that one of the biggest factors in terms of owning and using a car is the availability of low-cost and free parking. If we're really concerned about parking in our district and the community, we should think about market pricing the free on-street parking we provide. But going at it this way, what's going to happen is we're going to a lot of people who are going to make the decision not to own a car. That's a good thing for the community.
Let me just remind everybody, we're not going to re-argue, well,
exactly what you said.
One more comment and then we're gonna vote. One
What
more
we're
comment.
going to do is talk about whether we should include a condition that the city or Wishfish offer equivalent.
Richard, one more question, then we'll call.
Point of information for the Wish representative here tonight. If you had to replicate this garage, completely replicate the garage, could you go ahead with this project? Would it be economically viable?
Absolutely. Impossible.
Luckily, because we live in New York City, there are very well-established funding sources where we can combine private capital, public capital to develop affordable housing. None of that exists for parking. That is why when we looked at our parking alternative, we went to the private market, we went to very well-capitalized parking providers, we gave them all the information and cooperation we possibly could, and their result was to say that we will not even provide a proposal for this project because it is not worth our time, it is uneconomic. So I have to say that I'm short of the city deciding that they want to devote millions and millions of dollars to developing parking garages, which does not seem to be their policy at the current moment. Our attempts to have the private market respond have not been successful.
Okay, let's call the question on the amendment.
All those in favor of the amendment, that's Jay's amendment, we're not voting on the resolution, just Jay's amendment. Jay, you want to read it again?
I think it's easier to just repeat the essence, because some of the words are long, but basically what the amendment says is that the approval of this project by the board is conditional on Wishfish and the city coming back with an alternative proposal which provides equivalent in the number of spaces, not pricing, the number of spaces, either on-site or off-site with a specific site, not just a broad declaration to try. Essentially, either on-site or specific off-site equivalent number of parking spaces.
Okay. Everyone understand the motion? All right.
All those in favor? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8. Against? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 23. Abstaining. None eligible to abstaining 1. None eligible to vote. 2, 3.
Okay. The amendment fails. Now, I think Mark had an amendment. Mark, read it.
Well, why don't I do what Jay did? There's language that I could offer and have drafted, but essentially the essence of my proposed amendment is to condition the approval, and I think we should approve the project, but to condition approval on either an enforceable agreement to build with union labor, or to provide 3 key elements of union labor, which are the workers being paid a prevailing wage, that the workers have the same or an equivalent site safety program, and that local hiring outreach apprenticeship opportunities be provided at the site. That would be my.
And I have a addition to that, Mark. We should have a provision regarding the use of women in business, minority enterprises.
It's already part of the city. I think that's already required. It's already required, I believe. So you wouldn't need my amendment to do that.
Let me just ask the Wishfish team, is there a contemplation of using or not using the prevailing wage scale? Just nod your head up and down.
So I just want to.
As
just want to start by saying Woodsfish has experience in building projects using prevailing wage. And we actually currently have projects under construction that require prevailing wage as a condition of the construction. This particular project does not have a prevailing wage requirement, and that is actually not Woodsfish's decision. It's a function of the public funding sources that are used in the project. Area prevailing wage requirement, and some do not, and I can certainly ask Kevin from HPD to maybe give a bit more information about that. With regard to the other two conditions, or maybe the other three conditions, one is a requirement for MBE, WBE. That is part of the public funding, so that will be something that we will incorporate into the project. One was about local hiring, and one of the things which prides itself on is working with contractors who can draw from the local community in order to have them work on the project. So we would make that a condition of the contractor that we work with. Also, when Woodsfish goes to hire permanent staff, we very, very much look to the local community. It's very good for us, it's good for the community. So we're very happy to accommodate that one. That's another one. Site safety. I will say that actually in the last recent years, because of concerns around construction safety, site safety requirements now apply pretty much to all projects, whether they have prevailing wage or non-prevailing wage. There used to be a discrepancy there, but there's been different changes in legislation that they actually are much closer now. That being said, we were willing to agree to a requirement that we would have a site safety requirement. That would be the equivalent of what would be required on a prevailing wage job.
Question. You mentioned that some of the contract sources, some of the funding sources don't require a prevailing wage. Do they prohibit it?
They do not prohibit it, but certain funding sources, Kevin can speak better to this than I can, have as a requirement that prevailing wage be an element of the project. Kevin?
And just to further add to that, because the funding sources that we have as a city to realize these projects, for those sources that don't require us to do prevailing wage, we don't seek out to go that route because those projects would become, once they financially infeasible because of just the amount of the resources that we have to go to prevailing wage on those jobs. Would sort of bump the project to a certain level where we would not be able to properly finance it to make it a realized project.
Okay. Any further questions or statements on Mark's?
Was there a second?
I have a question.
Was there a second?
Yes, there was.
One question and then we're going to vote.
So would voting for this amendment make the project financially infeasible?
Yes. The answer is yes.
We don't know that.
Okay. What's the answer?
He just said it.
Well, the question is if.
So I can say that for the other points that I addressed, the non-prevailing wage points, they would not make the project unfeasible, and Woodsfish is happy to accommodate them. On the prevailing wage, I mean, a study done by a third-party independent looked at differential costs to build a construction prevailing wage versus non-prevailing wage. It increases the construction costs anywhere from 25 to 30%. It would require the city to agree to put in many millions of dollars more into the project. So I can't speak to that because I would just find the recipient of city public funding.
Yeah, no, I agree with what Paul just said.
So is a vote yes killing the project?
So, and I guess maybe I just need clarification because it sounded like there were 2 points made for the amendment. It was either to have the job go prevailing wage or to meet the local hiring.
No, the amendment was either union shop or prevailing wage for the other
It was either union or prevailing wage. With that, the question is, if the amendment passed, would that kill the project?
Right, I think that's also a conversation that we have to have going forward, going throughout the process. We're not at the closing stage of the project. My team here will address that.
Hi, my name is Teresa Casano. I'm the director of the Supportive Housing Loan Program, and we are part of the package of city financing that will go into this project.
So when we say 20 to 30% more expensive, that would be a significant increase above our term sheet limits. And we as a city agency or another public source would have to fill that gap, or this project would be infeasible. And given the amount of money that would entail for this project, it would very seriously put the financing in jeopardy.
Can you tell us in dollars, numbers of dollars, how much extra?
So what are we at TBC right
What
now?
does 20 to 30% mean?
I mean, it could be $20 million additional for the project.
Okay, all those in favor of Mark? Oh, sure.
This is my amendment, and I think I know where this is going, but I will say that just as we were talking earlier tonight about competing social goods as opposed to a good thing and a bad thing, the notion that we would support a policy decision to construct in a manner that is inconsistent with the best practices in that industry is something that I don't think our board should support. And that's, I don't mean to add expense to anybody, but the fact that a prevailing wage means that parties who have equal bargaining power have come to $1, we're going to pay the folks less. That they have a way in which that construction sites are managed, and we're not going to abide by that as a condition of going forward, to me, is a policy statement that we should not make.
All right, we're gonna have 2 comments on it, then we're gonna call questions.
As far as I understand, it's usually a federal requirement to pay prevailing wage when the federal government is subsidizing the project with some kind of HUD money. And that's usually unlikely they get more HUD money in this political climate. And I think just because they're not paying the federal definition of prevailing wage doesn't mean these are underpaid workers or they're being cheated in some way. It means they're just not meeting this federal requirement of the exact prevailing.
One more comment, and then we're calling questions.
Your comments fall into 2 categories: the conditions at the site and the safety at the site, which I fully support, and the actual pay, which is going to, as we've heard, cost millions of extra dollars. And I just want to put something in perspective. We're facing massive budget cuts from the federal government. We're facing a massive decline in affordable housing. And to imperil this project at this point, I think would be an enormous mistake.
Okay, all those in favor of Mark's amendment?
All those in favor? Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Abstaining? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm not eligible to vote. 1, 3, 3. Yes.
All right, the amendment fails. However, without hearing an objection, I will add to the resolution the points that Mark made other than the prevailing wage and union wage points. Mark, if you want to just. Yeah, write that up. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone object to that? No. Thank you. Amendments. Amendments.
Roberta.
We have a quick amendment.
Well, I have one also, and I had made it earlier. I haven't heard.
Who's just quicker? Yours and his?
We voted down Clay's motion of providing equivalent of parking on or off the site. I'm all for parking, as I said earlier, but I think it's unreasonable to ask for more than 600 cars parking. I think there's a reasonable alternative of requiring at least perhaps 200 or 300 parking cars in a similar way to the way Jay does.
It's the same issue.
I just want to make a quick attempt to solve the problem of laundry rates. As far as the delay, I think there are different ways to do it legally besides a prohibition. There's a certain, you could also do a simple sale and lease back to the city of the garage. So I would, Richard, on page 12, that paragraph, I would just say, approval is conditioned upon the simultaneous transfer of title, to the eastern and western sites to Wishers.
Instead of what I have here. Okay, all right, that's, all right. All those, now, here's, let me just, make clear.
Sometimes family, you know.
I accept it, but no, I can't accept it. No, I can't accept this. It's the opposite of what it says here. What it says here, I don't know if it's the opposite, but what it says here is that we urge HPD to eliminate the 5-year waiting period, okay? What Jay is saying is that instead of urging HPD to eliminate the 5-year waiting period, we make our approval conditioned on the simultaneous transfer or some other legal binding agreement that they can't wriggle out of selling the eastern side.
But I'm just trying to solve the problem.
Do we not have the
It's in
current
there.
copy? Because it
It's in there
directly
already.
says expedite the transfer of title. That's exactly what your amendment is.
No, but it only says to the eastern site. I'm saying that has to be simultaneous transfer of title.
The first one is gonna be transferred right
We were
away.
told that it can't be done.
Okay, well,
We were told that it can't be done.
trust me when I tell you this language works, but.
I trust you when you say the language works, but it is I just want to point out that number 5, the committee voted 18-2 with Nikki and the dissent to expedite rather than wait for 5 years. You're saying, well, what?
They're not. The transfer of title and the commencement of construction.
Point to this.
They might not, what we asked them to expedite it, I think what Jay is saying is that just because we asked them to expedite it doesn't mean they will. And in case they don't expedite it, the simultaneous transfer would mean that it's transferred. So I don't think,
That's fine.
I don't think,
So it's not a substitute.
no, I don't think it's a substitute, I think it was an additional word.
So it urges to expedite and in any event to
Yes.
transfer simultaneously.
Yeah, no problem.
Question. Can you call the question?
Transfer a private city garage to a private entity, of the city garage to a private entity to operate.
They can transfer land.
They're transferring land, they're not transferring the garage. The city would just continue to operate the garage.
All right, so.
Okay.
Right.
It's not a condition anyway. So
First,
that's the direction I'm going.
Yes, right, accepting this kind of-
Nobody objects.
It's not conditional, is it?
No.
Then
It is.
what's the big deal?
Well,
If you want to solve the problem, it should be a condition.
We
There is
can't
no
make
problem.
conditions when the city said they can't do it.
The city said
They said they.
well, if they can't do it, they won't do it, so.
Am I misunderstanding?
Can we, are we at a point where we can vote?
Yes.
Yes. I'd like to call the question.
if everybody looks at vote number 4, item number 4, we do make the approval conditional on certain things that might accomplish something. And
Well, wait, we're not voting yet.
You need.
We're just, Richard, do you want to read the,
number 4 reads, approves the disposition of sites described above the wish to, provided, however, that the buildings have the same height, quote, and massing described above, and the application was that the use of the property be limited to the purposes described in the application, and that in no event shall the building be used for private housing, commercial purposes other than described in the application, and that the restrictions set forth in the application number 1.
Yeah, Richard, if I may, from the border, the text reads in singular, and might very much help if you meant the plural so that it covers both sides. Now, does that solve Audrey's problem?
yes. Yes.
You want to add to that title transfer, that the city can leave them down. Okay.
We still have all these.
question on, are we getting question on here? Okay, folks,
Call the question.
the time has
Second.
come. Time has come to vote.
So, I'm sorry, so other than having plural,
No.
I'm gonna add something along
no,
additional. We'll get it to you.
There's no additional conditions. If there is, we have to vote on it. So let's
It's not a
find.
condition, it's,
well, I'm hearing two things now.
We didn't vote on a condition.
Something that I don't understand. Are we now saying, based on what Jay was speaking about, that we are delaying the eastern side?
no delay.
All right.
So
What
we
we're
call the
saying
question.
is that approval is conditioned on the city binding itself legally now to dispose of both sites to the issue.
Yes. Okay, can we call the question?
I have a problem with that. Because, and the city actually do that, because what the city said before was that unless they were going to, if they were to transfer the land now, they have to start developing now.
They don't have to transfer the land now, they just have to legally commit. You and I can enter into an agreement for you to sell your land in 5 years.
And I can't get out of that agreement. Okay, let's call the question.
Okay, I'm gonna vote no unless someone objects.
Well, Nick Cloud is Ask HCB. Ask him again, ask him, there, he's not here. That's it. Yes or no?
I think we get support.
Well, who we're gonna ask?
Yeah, we just need an answer.
So when it comes to legally binding ourselves to do this, that's not a question I think I can answer now. This is something I have to discuss. So figuring out what the mechanism would be to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, we can't do it if they want.
That's all right.
We're ready to vote.
Yeah, I mean, does anybody want to vote separately on that adding one?
No.
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 You accepted it. I accept it.
Okay, so we vote on it as separate.
All right.
All right.
What I'd like to do, with no one, unless someone objects, is to bundle items 1 through 4, and vote separately on 5.
Excellent.
All right? All those in favor of items 1 through 4?
All those in favor?
That's.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yes.
Porque no está de cámara. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. That's 28. Okay. Anybody against? No. Abstaining. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not eligible to vote. The difference 3. So the resolution passes.
28-0-4-3.
28-0-4-3.
Okay, now we're going to vote on number 5, which is the provision that encourages HPD to expedite the
On
plan.
your voting sheet, number 5 will be number 12.
As usually happens here, number 5 becomes number 12. All right. All those in favor of the resolution to expedite? Those are the
Okay. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. That's only 1 against. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Abstaining. 1, 2, 3, 4. And not eligible to vote 3. So the resolution passes. 21, 6, 4, 3.
I want to thank everybody for your patience. This was a difficult item for the board, it was difficult for the speakers. I want to thank everybody for the way in which this was done.
And I want to thank Richard for his very good service.
Okay, here's the song. I'll give it 10 seconds. We just want to wrap it. It's getting kind of late. We want to wrap it. Transportation Committee met, and we had a resolution to asking the DOT, Department of Transportation, to take a look at Broadway. Basically, Broadway has been the same for decades.
Folks, can we keep the noise down? We do have to continue business.
Oh, jeez.
And Broadway is in fact.
Those could just not call until we leave. We're trying to conduct the meeting.
To do our business and get out of here ourselves. And Broadway remains the least safe corridor in our community. There's approximately one death a year, and there have been hundreds of reported injuries over the last 5 years. So we're basically simply asking the DOT to take a look at the street and see what they can come up with. We have 2 speakers on this request to the DOT. The first is Melanie Bryant. Or Melinda Bryant.
Just to try to make it have better facilities or better services.
This will only take 20 minutes. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Melanie Bryan. I'm a cyclist and pedestrian, and I strongly urge the DOT to consider making Broadway a complete street. That means a dedicated bus lane, protected bike lane, and safe crossings for pedestrians. Broadway is a busy street, but not always a safe street. In fact, it's considered a Vision Zero priority project, the most dangerous corridor on the Upper West Side. There are city bike stations along Broadway, but Broadway is a terrifying street for cyclists, and there are many people who don't have a choice about where they ride, any more than they have a choice about where they need to walk. The most efficient way to move people is by bus, subway, and bike. And all of these forms of transportation need to be safe and efficient. For the sake of efficiency and safety, Broadway needs to be a complete street, a street that serves everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more speaker, Willow Seltzer.
I'm gonna get that.
Okay.
It's a very exciting time for Broadway. And I'd just like to highlight, my name is Reed Ruby. I'd like to highlight the real potential. You know, we have this problem with empty storefronts on Broadway. And activating Broadway as a complete street, if you think about other streets in the world, you've seen in the magazines and in movies, where there are real places to go, there's a lot of activity. And that's an opportunity, as well as the safety, if you don't know what they call that. And of course, the transportation, we all want to get there quickly and safely. So I urge the board to ask DOT to prepare this study so that we can all understand what Broadway can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, this resolution talks about the fact that it is the least safe corridor in our community and requests the DOT to come back with proposals for the street. I'm sure we'll have a heated and involved discussion at that time. Again, at this point, we're just asking them to take a look at it, use all the tools in their kit, and come up with something for us to take a look at. Yep. I assume they're going to use their own resources, so I don't think it could be any cost. I don't know. I think they are going to use their own internal resources and their time. And this is what the DOT does. They look at streets in the community and they try to improve them. They haven't done any comprehensive study of Broadway, to my knowledge, in decades. So I think it warrants taking a look at it.
Even those have a cycle occasionally has to go bike
that something we should consider?
I personally find it perilous to walk in the neighborhood. The bikes are going every different direction at all points in time. I think that we should see books and umbrellas. I think it's an urgent time. If I could just finish, I think it's an urgent time to take a look at what's going on in the entire district. There are bicyclists going up Columbus, down Amsterdam, they're going all over the place. I lived 71st and Broadway, there was the bow tie death, and you walk out on the street, try to cross it at night, Lord help you, because there's a delivery person or a person on a city bike going every different direction. Furthermore, the issue of the electric bikes that have been banned on there, they're everywhere. I love the restaurant Tanzan, but they have these 5 or 6 electric bikes out in front of the restaurant. And I recently asked the police officer walking by what the story was, and he said the story is the mayor has told the police not to object to them. One final anecdote from my personal life, walking south on First Avenue, get to NYU, a bicyclist on the sidewalk, going past me and my husband and the police officer, and I said to the police officer, sir, did you see that? And he said, see what? And I said, that bike. And he said, yes. And he told me that they had been told not to announce. I think that if DOT is going to be taking the time to look at anything, it should be the entire district in what's planned.
I agree completely. I just want to make a point. It's not that the mayor has said electric bikes are not proper. They're illegal. They're totally illegal. Period. Full stop. Illegal. Right. We have this discussion all the time at the Transportation Committee that the biggest issue is enforcement. That there's a real problem with enforcement, and we tried to get the NYPD to go along. But let me just get back to the point. The point is, we came up with this resolution to take a look at Broadway, but what you're saying is very important, and we definitely should put on the agenda for our next committee meeting. Yep.
I have a question. Broadway, where is it that it's not safe? Where?
Rich Robbins is the data expert, but
and the reason that I ask you this question is because of Walking Avenue, Broadway is short on both sides. Because there's an island, that island.
Just the numbers of deaths and injuries is the highest.
So I need to get.
It's very explainable why Broadway would have the worst statistics. We have 3 commercial avenues. Broadway's the only one with a subway under it, buses, and all of that commercial activity. So of course, there's more pedestrians on Broadway than anywhere else. So you will have higher. The question is, are they higher per capita on Broadway than they are in other places? And that's what we would like to know from DOT. Just for information, I was the abstention on the committee on this because of the term complete streets. I don't think we should tell DOT exactly what to, they know what to look for and what can be done to make Broadway safer. We don't have to lead them by the hand in that way, because complete streets means something completely different.
I think we have 2 more comments. We have 2 more comments, Rich, and then George.
So since I've been on the board, I've tried to take a very data-focused look at everything, and especially transportation, which is eminently measurable and data-driven. Looking at the data, and to be clear, that this resolution is not about any one user of any of the streets. It's about all users. And looking at all of our north-south corridors, by far, Broadway is the worst for all users, for motorists, for pedestrians, and for cyclists. And we voted a few years ago that our #1 priority for transportation should be to allow the people who use our streets to do so safely. And if we want to have an impact on reducing the number of fatalities and the number of injuries in our district, it has to be Broadway. Broadway is by far the most dangerous north-south corridor. And telling DOT to look at everything effectively is telling them don't look at anything. We need them to look at Broadway. Broadway is a serious issue. And if we want to drive down the total number of injuries, which is somewhere in the 300 to 500 range every year, and the total number of fatalities for all users, we need to look at Broadway. In terms of, yeah, and so to that question, looking at a map of our district and looking at where the crashes happen, where the injuries happen, the line, and I could do a long presentation, which I'm sure no one wants right now, but the line on Broadway is much thicker at every intersection. It's worse at the major intersections, of course, with the 72nd, 79th, 86, 96. But it's bad on Broadway throughout. And sure, it's because the subway's there, it's because it has a lot more pedestrians, it has a lot more traffic, it's two-way. But for all those reasons, it's that much more imperative for us to look at Broadway. Because if we want to drive down the number of injuries and the number of crashes and the number of fatalities in our district, it has to start at Broadway. Just Susan, to your point about cyclists, and especially about delivery cyclists and e-bikes, I've been urging the Transportation Committee to have a joint meeting with BCI for over a year to look at the issue of delivery cyclists and e-bikes. It's a very complicated issue, but it's a totally separate issue.
Let's just stay with Broadway.
It's
late, let's stay with
Okay, well, I Googled it.
But let's stay.
I'll tell you what the number one Google thing is, and this seems to be my understanding of complete street. There is no singular design prescription for complete streets that's going to take a minute. Each one is unique in response to its community context. A complete street may include sidewalks, bike lanes, or paved shoulders, special bus lanes, comfortable and accessible public transportation stops, frequent and safe crossings, median islands, accessible pedestrian signals, curb extensions, narrow travel lanes, roundabouts, and more. It's a kind of street, as I understand it, that can accommodate all users. Actually, I use the exact same language.
Okay, we're gonna have one more comment, then we're gonna call questions.
I just need to agree completely with the Honorable Susan Schwartz that the issue of examining just Broadway ain't gonna do it. It has to be all the avenues. The enforcement issue has to be part of the investigation. Being one board member that was seriously injured by a bicycle going the wrong way in a path is out of hand. So having just one more thoroughfare that has a bike lane, it's just one more opportunity for me, you, your children to be hit by a bicyclist going the wrong way. So it's one and the same parcel, not two.
In one 5-minute period from 7:25 in the morning to 7:30 on a weekday morning, I stood at the corner of 72nd and Columbus and took pictures of 25 infractions of city road regulations, as we call them. People, mostly not delivery people, because it's 7:25 in the morning, it's mostly not delivery people. I think that it would be really worth it to take a look at all of the north-south thoroughfares all at once, to take a look at the safety issues, because a lot of times people don't report incidents unless somebody's been killed. So I would like to amend this to see two things. One, I'd like to hear Andrew's thoughts on why you didn't want the term complete streets in there, but I'd also like to change it and make an amendment so that it's to have DOT take a look at the entire district in terms of safety. I don't see any downside to this.
So, well, one issue is.
Can I make a point from the committee? We should definitely look at that. Enforcement has been a big issue. I just reread the resolution. This doesn't even mention bike lanes. It doesn't mention bike lanes. It just, all this talks about is for the DOT, so that all users can use it safely. And I think this is a safety resolution. Okay, that's a friendly amendment, but for all users to use it safely, yes. Instead of the term complete streets, just the definition that I read, safe for all users. That I see.
It's like, if everyone's okay.
I don't see any downside to changing these throughout the district.
No, because if you just do the whole.
The DOT is gonna do, they'll do one street. I think we do Broadway and then we ask them to do the other streets.
Also, Susan, you're talking about enforcement, which is police department, not DOT.
Right.
The issue you're talking about is totally separate from this.
Up or down, let's call the questions, we still have a lot of. Well, you accepted the amendment as friendly.
Which amendment?
I accepted the amendment
to, instead of using the term complete street, a street that is safe for all users, that really is a friendly amendment. It's not Susan's amendment. It's not Susan's amendment. Susan's amendment is to expand this.
Okay, that's not good. So is there a second to that? All right, if there are all those in favor of expanding,
All those in favor of the one, two, three,
expanding to,
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
all those opposed?
Those opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Abstaining. 1, 2. Not eligible to vote. So the amendment is defeated.
Okay, let's vote on the amendment, on the resolution as amended. All those in favor of the amendment?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Against. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Abstaining. 1. So the resolution passes 25-1-0.
The transportation will be open after this review to present its to our.
Jamie. I apologize, we have a public speaker, I don't know if it's still here, Kathleen Bird. Anyway, she wanted to talk about, drug sales on 94th and 95th Street and shelter guidelines, so I apologize to her. Okay, Jay, take it away.
Okay, guys, I know it's late, and we need to get out of here, so I'll try to do this quick as I can. We have 3 resolutions for presentation. The first one, Jerry, you with me? The first one, just quickly, this application was for a window master plan, 51 West 91st Street. The applicant actually came, that's not what it looked like. The applicant actually came to us last December and presented a window master plan that was essentially the same configuration as the existing windows, which were not original, not historic, because for many years the committee felt that since it was a master plan and ultimately would encompass the whole building, that the plan needed some tweaking as far as the actual composition of these windows. The applicant at that time indicated a willingness to revamp the plan and go back to the committee. So as a result of that, we never brought the resolution to the full board. Fast forwarding, the applicant never came back. The item was on the landmarks agenda at the end of October, but it was laid over, and we just learned today that the staff at landmarks has some concerns. But anyway, our original determination was to disapprove the application because we felt that the master plan as submitted was not appropriate. We unanimously disapproved it. So a yes vote is a vote to disapprove of the application for the window master plan. Any questions? All the questions.
All the questions? All those in favor of the disapproval? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Anybody against?
Jay, you're really loud. Could you hold the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
23-0-0-0.
So unless someone suggests the absence of a quorum, we still have a quorum that we can have the time we convene. And I don't hear anyone. Do you hear? I don't hear anyone suggesting the absence of a quorum, because then we'd have to have another meeting in December, and we'd have to call a quorum. So no one is suggesting the absence of a quorum, correct? Correct.
Correct, you got that
So
right.
moving ahead, Jerry, maybe you can get me a picture of this one. 70 West 71st Street. I think I have a picture of it.
Oh, this is Pasha?
This is Pasha. Okay, yeah, that's probably. Anyway, this is an application actually to legalize the installation of this fixed awning at the Pasha Turkish restaurant. The applicant is a current owner of the restaurant, and he inherited this configuration from the previous owner who put it up without getting permission from landlords. And the way it works on these legalization issues, both before the board and at landmarks, is while nobody is in favor of putting up structures illegally, everyone treats it as if it were an initial application, and we evaluate on the merits. Yes, it's a fixed awning. If Jerry, do you have one that shows the corner structure? There are two types of awnings: retractable and fixed. And unless now I checked the regulations of landmarks, and unless the building when it was built integrated a retractable awning in the design, which, as far as we know, is not the case here. Landmarks will approve both fixed and retractable awnings if they deem the design appropriate. But you can't see this picture, but to the right, Jerry. Anyway, going around the corner, there are several commercial establishments, including this one, with awnings. It's a commercial area, and we deem the awning to be appropriate. There was also a wall. Jerry, go back. There's also a wall separating like an entrance way to an apartment. Yeah, the one with the garbage. The one with the garbage. And you see to the right, there's like a white wall that was built by the previous owner. He did that to wall off the stack of garbage that the owner of the apartment puts out. And on the other side of that wall is an open area of the restaurant where people dine. So that was part of the application to legalize that wall. And long story short, we all felt that I should say there was one extension. The awning was appropriate and the wall was appropriate in context of the other commercial establishment, and we included the organization. Any questions?
I just note that the stanchions, they go into an E-wall that actually separates the sidewalk from a below grade. So we are not establishing a new precedent here. This is sui generis because the physical condition of that outdoor cafe is different than anything else you'll ever see.
Okay, one further thing is, the awning itself is attached to the building with visible metal brackets. We suggest the owner that he contact the awning people and get more material and create sort of a balance in the back to cover those metal clips on it. I guess you can see that. Anyway, he agreed to do that. Yeah, I mean, we suggested that he contact buildings and the sanitation department because it looks like they're putting out recycling every day instead of just doing it on recycling day. But that's obviously not our jurisdiction. Any questions? One question, all in favor?
Against? None. Abstaining? None. Not able to vote no. The vote passes 25-000.
And last but not least, this was another application for legalization. This was At 100 West 72nd Street, 2 apartments, were replaced with double hung windows, the windows that were replaced were themselves replacement windows, not original windows. 3 of these replacement windows were replaced, if you will, with new aluminum windows, same color, same configuration, which is sliders below fixed transom. And on one of the windows, in lieu of projecting air conditioners, these apartments were centrally air conditioned. So they put in lieu of one of the transoms, an architectural linear aluminum grille in the same color as the window frames. And we deemed the replacement of the windows and the grille as acceptable and appropriate to this building in the historic district. Any questions? Call the question.
¿Tiene otros en favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 25. Okay? None? Standing none, none let your vote none. The vote passes 25-0-0-0.
Thank you.
Okay, number 9, Jerry? Yep. Okay, number 9 are new applications for SLA licenses. 158A West 72nd Street is a new operation. 425 Amsterdam is a former McAleer's. It's going to be a transfer from one set of family members to another for state purposes. 774 Amsterdam, Boru, another new restaurant. And 938 Amsterdam, Drive 106. I think that's all. That's also a transfer from one family member to another. As you know, McAleer's in Drive 106 has been around for a long time. Boru, the new owner, is in the restaurant business. And 7 Hills, I think that's also a transfer, a brand new owner who has another restaurant. Anyway, we approve these applications unanimously, 6-0-0-0. Any questions?
Call the question.
All right, all those in favor?
All those in favor?
This is number 9, the 4 applications. Number 9.
26. Anybody against? Seeing none. Anybody abstaining? Seeing none.
For the record, 26 is quorum. In fact, we only need 24 for quorum. So we never lost quorum.
I'm going to skip to number 11 because that's a straight denial for Serafina's Cafe Uptown. They didn't show up. They asked to be seen at the pre-meeting today, but there was never a notice posted, so they're going to come to us next month. So I'm asking you to oh, sorry, sister. That's being told. So I'm asking you to disapprove the application for 2737 Broadway, Serafina, only because they didn't show up and we had to do a vote. This is number 11. Jerry's in number 10. The
Vote to say.
Is that a yes on the sheet?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
it is,
it's
yeah.
no.
Against? Seeing none. Abstaining? Seeing none. The vote passes 25-0-0-0.
Passes. Can I hand the mic over to Jerry for number 10, 955 West End Avenue? Okay, I have to abstain from this vote because my husband sometimes puts money at this joint. And I get to vote 50 out of it.
Okay, let me summarize some of this, and then I will read you the resolution. So 955 Western Avenue is a venue where they currently do live music. They have a live mic nights. When the applicant came to us, we thought at first they came to us under the guise of doing a new application. And that was not, we found out that wasn't the case. They were just trying to do a corporate change to add partners to the license, which didn't imply that the license wouldn't change. After hearing also then from the community, there was a lot of opposition, a lot of complaints, I should say, about this location because they have the extreme noise. So there have been numerous times that numerous noise complaints. The community have complained about the streets late at night because of this venue. The smoke. So there's have been many complaints, and the police have been called to this venue many times. We at that point decided not to vote because we wanted to find more about the license. We were not certain about whether what the applicant was presenting to us was correct. Since then, we have found out that this is a venue that started as a bookstore, and the Department of Buildings gave a letter of no objection to the bookstore being there, and a letter of objection for the liquor license to be awarded to the venue, to the bookstore. We also further found out that the method of operation specified under that liquor license specified no music. So that means that all this time, many years, this place has been operating with the music illegal. So part of our resolution is going to urge the state liquor license authority to enforce its current method of operation. The applicant withdrew the application prior to the meeting, and both from us and from the state liquor license authority. So let me read the resolution. Whereas Mocha Lounge Inc., aka the Western Cafe, aka the Underground, the applicant is located at 955 Western Avenue, New York, New York. Whereas this location is surrounded by residential buildings and Strauss Park is across the street. Whereas the applicant is making an application to the state liquor license of the state liquor authority for a corporate. Whereas the applicant has withdrawn the application from the state liquor license authority and from CB7. The present method of operation of this venue allows a bookstore for coffee, beverages, and alcohol can be served. No music is permitted. Whereas the community has presented the following complaints against the current owner. These are the complaints. The venue has live and or recorded music and or karaoke music every day of the week. This music is loud enough to be heard 1 block away from residential tenants with their children suffer the most. They came to the November 14th BCI meeting and articulated the numerous noise complaints over the course of 5 years. Music continues till 4 a.m. most nights. Insulation inside the venue does not muffle any sounds from the music. Patrons congregate in the well of the building to smoke cigarettes. This is arguably inside the building. Trash and debris are stored in parts of the well. However, all residential buildings are required to keep the well clear. The sixth complaint: patrons congregate under the scaffolding to smoke. 7. There is no doorman to disperse groups from congregating outside the building. Patrons congregate there in the Strauss Park all night. These groups continuously make loud noises above hours and keep the neighbors and the children awake. The sidewalks around the venue are littered with debris from the patrons, and there is no attempt to keep the sidewalk clean. Vermin is attracted to the debris. The sidewalks have signs and plants blocking the flow of pedestrian traffic. A solicitor outside the building urging pedestrians to come into the venue. This causes noise and is uncharacteristic of neighborhood businesses. Residents who are coming home are often harassed by patrons who are loitering on building steps and on the sidewalk. The kitchen door is left open. This door leads to the backyard corridor shared by the residential tenants. This could lead to safety problems for those tenants. Many tenants of the building and those in the surrounding buildings have made 311 complaints, and few, if any, are resolved, and signage to the venue is not in conformity with the rules. It is on the fence of the perimeter of the wall of the well and of the facade. Therefore, being resolved that CB7 has an SLA to enforce the current method of operation as a bookstore with a previously for license without music. Being further resolved that CB7 acknowledges that the present owner has the option to amend the existing method of operation, and this is an option that will be evaluated by CB7 and the community. So that is a resolution.
Can we vote?
Having withdrawn their liquor application, does that mean when that expires, they can no longer sell that? Prior to coming back to us, or?
It wasn't the application was only for a corporate change, so it wasn't really affecting the actual liquor of the part of it.
Have you been in touch with the SLA?
John has been in touch with the SLA. Actually, most of what we found out was through John diligence. Another thing that we found out also was that
going back to the operation of
the SLA, we have been also in contact with the SLA and the so now that the SLA is aware of the problems, they will investigate, and they're the ones that will enforce the license.
Yeah.
On the resolution side.
Can you read it?
Let me read that part.
No, please.
Let him read the operative part.
Please.
We just asked.
It's the operative
Let
part.
me summarize. We're voting on, we are resolving that the SLA enforce the application, the method of operation as it is now, which is a bookstore with serving liquor but with no music.
Jerry,
Yes,
that's your first
resolve.
result, but you have another one.
Yeah. The second one is just, yes.
That's what I got to ask. Another one sort of invites them to come in and get something more favorable to them. I don't understand.
Well, we're not advising, what we want to make
Why
clear.
say the second thing?
What we want to make clear, the second result is that we're acknowledging that they have that option, and we know that there's more that they're getting to do that.
Why do we volunteer that? The whole essence of this is enforce what they've got. Why are we volunteering that they should come in and get something? I don't see what.
No, I suppose we can expect that.
I wouldn't suggest.
Okay, so we just leave it as the, we're amending it so that the result is that we are urging the SLA to enforce the pyramid of
Call the question.
Okay, all those in favor?
Good, that was very good.
26. Against?
No, that was good. We tried to slip that one.
Saying none, the vote passes 26-000.
Yeah.
I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And I wish everyone